Today on Ruthless Passive Aggression. How many fights can be started just because of Rikishi's ass? What's the best way for a wrestling company to incorporate LGBTQ storylines? And what exactly is the best technique to perform the Hyman maneuver? All those questions will be answered and more on Ruthless Passive Aggression.
Who has enough ruthless aggression?
This is Ruthless Passive Aggression with your host, Jake, Drake, and the WrestleBucket.
Hello and welcome to Ruthless Passive Aggression. I'm Drake Jackson alongside Jake Edwards.
Hey buddies.
And the WrestleBucket.
I am a bucket.
I like the new catchphrase. I hope that's your catchphrase from now on. That's really good.
That's not what that is. That is not a catchphrase. Like, listen to this.
He's just smacking himself.
I have been getting blown up on Twitter. How can you be a bucket and have a podcast?
Right.
I can't answer these questions for you. I'm a thing that exists, and you're gonna have to deal with it.
He's a smart bucket, though. He's got some great insight. You gotta give him that.
No, man, but speaking of dealing with things, Unforgiven 2002 today. We started off strong with SummerSlam. I kind of feel bad, but right now we're hitting all the infamous moments within the next few pay-per-views that people talk about just being absolutely tasteless in the Ruthless Aggression era. Because a lot of people talk about, oh yeah, you know, it was crude back in the Attitude Era, which it was, but everyone had something to do. Here we're seeing, like, them throwing shit at the wall to see what sticks and, like, losing half their viewers at this point.
There's a lot of tasteless stuff that just gets thrown in and you don't understand why it's happening.
Yeah, and so also I've been catching up with the Ruthless Aggression documentary series they're putting on the network. As of this recording, there's been 3 episodes, and I really enjoy that they're doing a documentary series on a period of time where they drove away half their audience. And also there's things in there like, oh yeah, remember when Vince McMahon just decided one day that he wanted to rename it WWE? Like, nothing else happened with the World Wildlife Fund. Nothing on the outside.
Nothing.
He just, one morning, he was like, well, we're entertainment now. We're not a federation. I don't even know what that is.
Remember that time Randy Orton won the world title and we don't even have a single idea who he beat at SummerSlam that year?
Yeah, I was really surprised. There's like a 2-second clip of him RKOing Chris Benoit.
And that's the only, that's probably the only time you'll ever see Chris Benoit in any of those documentaries.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I haven't seen it yet.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I'm afraid to watch it. I'm trying to take all these pay-per-views because I'm watching all these things for the first time.
Right.
I don't want like a spoiler, I guess you could say.
Right.
But I'm very interested in the subject matter. It will happen one day.
There's a really good one on John Cena, and I think there's some great insight that we're going to be able to use some of that information in the coming shows.
Yeah, for sure.
But they did a really good one on Cena. They did a really good one on Evolution. And I got really scared because I didn't think they were going to talk about Mark Jindrak in that documentary, and they let that dude on the show. It was great.
The whole time they're like, yeah, we fucking hated Mark Jindrak, and Mark Jindrak's like, yeah, I deserve it. You know, I get it. Whatever.
My
felt
favorite,
so bad.
My favorite part was there was that segment where they were talking about how Mark Jindrak and Randy Orton had a bad match against the Dudleys.
Yeah.
And it's essentially like listening to Charlie Murphy and Rick James tell their different stories.
Bubba Ray Dudley's like, oh yeah, no, they talked about a foot injury, but I don't recall that. Both of us got injured that night. You know, there may have been some yelling, yeah.
Cocaine's a hell of a drug.
Before we get into this, Jake, you are a madman, because to keep up between the pay-per-views, I'm reading results from Raw and SmackDown, but apparently you're watching the Raws and SmackDowns in between?
It's... You know what? I can't stand watching today's product. So this is how I'm getting my wrestling fix right now, is by watching some of these old Raws and SmackDowns, and I'm thoroughly enjoying it. It's a lot of fun just seeing what Baby John Cena's doing. What
you get to see him lose clean to Devon.
Oh my god.
To Reverend Devon.
Oh, testify!
John Cena was used as cannon fodder in the feud between Deacon Batista and Reverend Devon.
That's amazing. Okay, but seriously though, Jake, mad props to you for being able to watch all of that, because it takes me like 3 sittings to get through the one pay-per-view.
Oh, yeah.
I have to watch it like an hour at a time. So just for you to be able to watch all this like backlog content, like golf clap.
Yeah.
Don't have any hands.
Don't act like I'm not taking an hour at a time on those pay-per-views. I mean, I just sat through the whole 3-minute warning versus Billy and Chuck thing, and I just watched that for like one night, and I gave up.
Yeah, you can't watch more than that. You gotta take the glasses off, rub the bridge of your nose. Like, that's too much.
Took a couple of shots of whiskey. It was painful.
So, in your journey watching Raw and SmackDown, are there any moments that aren't gonna come up that you think that aren't gonna come up naturally throughout this pay-per-view that we need to discuss? Because we're being pretty thorough with the Ruthless Aggression era.
We definitely need to talk about... We need to follow up with the Lillian Garcia, Howard Finkel, who's a heel storyline. They had a conclusion to their feud the night after SummerSlam.
Oh, no.
We remember that Trish Stratus kicked Howard Finkel and his Howard Dinkle at SummerSlam. Probably my best joke I've ever written in my life. And those two had an evening gown / tuxedo match the night after SummerSlam on Raw.
So hang on, let me guess. Finkel's in the evening gown. Lillian Garcia's in the tuxedo.
I really wish it would have been like that. Unfortunately, it was not. It was not that way.
Oh, no.
You can't put that image in my head. Okay, you may not know this, but I've been in love with Lillian Garcia for a really long time.
Right.
And just her in a slick tuxedo. Like, I can't even. Like, I was so jealous of Viscera back in the day.
Those cufflinks really bring out your eyes, baby. It was terrible. It's as bad as what you would imagine that match would be. They come out to the ring.
I'm imagining pretty bad.
You mean
So it's worse than that?
You mean the wrestling match between the 2 ring announcers had a bad wrestling match? No way.
The two go out to the ring and they legit start fighting. You see Howard Finkel start dominating Lillian, starts grabbing her by the hair, and it looks like things are going pretty bad. And you know who comes out to save Lillian Garcia? Let's cue Trish Stratus and Stacy Keibler to come out, and they just, all 3 of them beat the living shit out of Howard Finkel, and then they just start stripping him down to his skivvies.
That's got to be his kink. Like, why else would they script that?
It's the only way I can get hard
Why
now.
Why else would they book that if it wasn't for his Howard Kinkle? Thank
Golf
you.
clap.
All right, well, this has been Ruthless Passive Aggression.
I feel... Okay, you ever go bowling and you do a strike round? And then one person goes up, strike. Second person goes up, strike. And then you're just sitting there if I can't think of one, I'm going to feel so inadequate.
The only other thing I can think of is, and I don't have the exact date on hand, there is an episode of Raw where Stacy Keibler and Terry Reynolds have a lingerie pillow fight in the middle of the ring. And can you guess who's going to host that segment?
It's got to be Jerry Lawler, right?
Oh, it's sure as shit Jerry Lawler.
It's got to be Jerry Lawler. That's on his business card that he hosts those.
I host lingerie pillow fights. I can host Girls Gone Wild events.
Let me tell you, Jerry Lawler is a real horn dog in this era. But the torch has been passed nowadays on Twitter to Jim Ross, and it's made me really upset.
He
because
doesn't know that you can see what he likes.
Yeah, Jim Ross
doesn't know.
He's just he's the moral standard in the Ruthless Aggression era. No matter what's going on, he's like, oh, I don't support this. Apologizing to the fans at home, trying to get the king to calm down. But nowadays, a female wrestler will post a selfie in a mirror, and he just tweets back an emoji smiling real big with a cowboy hat on.
My God.
Yeah. Or he inserts a Blue Chew ad.
He spent way too much time with Jerry Lawler.
Yeah.
He really rubbed off on him,
didn't.
not in a good way.
We didn't know, but Jim Ross has been writing Jerry's lines this whole time.
It's his outlet for his sexual frustration.
Oh my God. they went and put a bed in the middle of the ring for that lingerie pillow fight, and then they just kept hitting each other with pillows, and you comically have like the feathers inside, and they just keep popping out, and it's as gross as what you would imagine it was. At one point, they like roll over Jerry, who just is absolutely loving every second of that.
Oh no!
And then I think at some point they just like Stacy gets a quick roll up, and Jerry counts the 3. She wins, and then for some reason she starts beating up Terry, and then decides that she's going to pour tar and feathers on top of Terry for no rhyme or reason. They don't address it any week after that match happens. But I guess for some reason Stacy's just really pissed at Terry Reynolds for being married to Goldust at one point. Or something. I don't know what the reason was.
That means someone backstage was like, what would be really hot for these ladies to do? Tar and feather. And then everyone asked that guy if he was all right.
Did it at least pop the crowd? Was the crowd into it, Jakey?
Oh, they absolutely were not, Bucket. That crowd was as lukewarm as some Billy Gunn chicken fingers at WWF New York.
All right, yeah, let's move on to Unforgiven 2002.
Tonight is a night different from all others. For tonight, there is not one, but 2 championship matches. The World Heavyweight title.
This event, one fall for the World's Heavyweight Championship.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have a new champion.
A symbol of defiance. An icon of power. Resurrected for a new purpose.
You people deserve your own World Champion. Exclusive to Raw.
To be given to an assassin.
Your new World Champion, Triple H.
The whole damn show.
Rob Van Dam.
Confident in his abilities, poised to play the game, determined to win the gold. Tonight, Triple H must defend his title to earn the illustrious championship handed to him out of corporate spite and accepted with personal greed. The WWE Championship. Soaked in the blood of its previous proprietors. Yet the current and most dominant controller has remained unscathed, ready to eliminate all that stand in his way.
Nobody can beat me.
A decade of destruction. Teaching pain is a lesson given to those who walk too close to his yard.
Tonight's got nothing to do with business. This is strictly personal.
Tonight, The Undertaker looks to take first blood, but Brock Lesnar seeks to dispose of another legend. On this night, we shall all bear witness to history. 2 championship matches, 1 night. A night where the mighty will rise and the meek shall remain unforgiven.
The pay-per-view themes in this era are my favorite genre of music. I unironically love any sort of butt rock, nu metal. I will defend Nickelback till the day I die. Only the first 2 or 3 albums. But I want to talk about, give a little theme song review on this one. The theme song for this is Adrenaline by Gavin Rossdale. He's formerly the lead singer of Bush. He is currently the lead singer of Bush, but this is when he was kind of ventured out solo on his own. No one knew he was solo at this point because it just sounded like more Bush. But this song was originally created for Triple X with Vin Diesel.
There was a little spot where they're like, thanks to so-and-so, so-and-so. You just said his name. I already forgot it.
Gavin Rossdale.
Thanks to so-and-so, so-and-so. It's the theme song for Triple X. And I was like, ooh, that synergy, though.
Yeah.
And it's like, very funny how, like, Vin Diesel would come around into the WWE right after The Rock left, planting the seeds for their feud going forward. I made that connection real quick.
Hey, Rock, do you like fast cars?
Do you really like family? Because we're all about family. But so with this song, I wanted to bring up it's a very strange choice for a pay-per-view theme. It had to be because of Triple X, because it's not really a super pump up song. Every time it plays, it's just kind of like, oh well, that's kind of nice. But I did go on to song meanings for this song, and I wanted to look at what some of the people were saying in 2002 when this was released. And here is a comment from 2002 about this song. Quote, Gavin Rossdale once again proves himself as an amazing artist. I am a huge Gavin Rossdale. She didn't put fan. And a huge Bush fan. So there's a giant Gavin Rossdale out here. Anyway, she says, and I'm not a huge Gavin Rossdale fan just because he's hot. Check my profile. I'm a girl, so no hate mail, okay? LOL.
I can't. I hope you keep doing this because, like, we're gonna get like Seether songs soon.
Yep.
And, like, we're gonna get like 3 Days Grace songs probably potentially.
Yep.
And I just can't. I can't.
She continues on calling him one of the greats, and says, "I'm not really a fan of what's his name, Vin Diesel."
You're still going.
It's a long comment. It's a very long comment. Hang on, this is the kicker. But I will go see the movie because I want to see how this song is put into motion. Smiley face. This song was made for the end credits of Triple X and did not appear until the end credits of Triple X.
I feel so sorry for this lady.
So that was good editing on their part.
Had to sit through 2 hours of Vin Diesel bullshit.
That whole time she was like, God, when does Gavin Rossdale show up? And then he's the end credits, so that's pretty good.
Oh, that's terrible.
Also, when the show opens, Jim Ross says, our sold-out crowd is fashionably late. Does anyone know what that means? Because I have no clue. I tried looking it up. I was like, was there some sort of reason they couldn't get in the building? Maybe he's just saying, hey, we aren't sold out, but maybe we will be.
I mean, I hope it just means that people couldn't get in time.
Right.
But it did look a little dead at first. You look at some of the shots towards the end of the show. It is a pretty packed house.
It's full. I don't know if it's 100% sold out because they never say that. The first match, and I did want to bring this up because I got caught last time, on Heat, Rey Mysterio beat Chavo Guerrero.
Thank God I can sleep tonight.
Yep.
I'm very proud of you. I'm just very upset that they don't attach these heats to the show. I'm not going to go out of my way to find heat, and I'm just not going to. And, like, I'm sure Chavo versus Rey Mysterio was super fine. It wasn't a Spike Dudley versus Stevie Richards caliber kind of match.
What could be?
Nothing whatsoever. So I'm sure it was fine. I'm sure Ray didn't slip up on 1619. I'm sure it was fine.
It says a lot about the roster that Rey Mysterio was in such a prominent position last time, and now he's on Heat opening, like, doing the pay-per-view pre-show and everything. Their roster is so stacked at this point.
And here's like the kind of disappointing thought about that. They didn't do much with Ray in those SmackDowns leading up to Unforgiven.
Right.
I think he had a really good match with Kurt Angle where the final spot of that match was an angle slam off the top rope. That was a good match, but he never really had any actual storyline going for him. He was kind of an accessory leading up to some of these other matches that we'll talk about.
Right. So on the actual pay-per-view, our first match is William Regal, Test, Christian, and Lance Storm, the Unamericans, versus Booker T, Goldust, Kane, and Bubba Ray Dudley. How'd we get here?
Team No Pyro versus Team All the Pyro.
Oh, yeah. Even the Dudleys. I think Bubba Ray Dudley ended up with the Pyro out of him and Devon split.
I mean, how exactly do you make Pyro with a preacher gimmick?
You just rain cash down.
Probably. That's a good idea.
Have Deacon Batista running around with the collection box trying to catch it.
Apparently they would go and, like, people would give them shoot money. they would go and buy beer for the boys in the back with the money they'd collect.
That's pretty smart.
I'm pretty sure Bruce Pritchard admitted that at one point.
I feel like I've heard that somewhere.
But that's a sweet gesture. Okay, so the question is, how did we get here? As we mentioned in our last pay-per-view review, Lance Storm and Christian retained the tag team titles at SummerSlam versus Goldust and Booker T. Then Tess jobs out to The Undertaker towards the end of that show. The next night on Raw, Book and Goldust defeat Storm and Christian in a non-title match. After that match, the Unamericans are upset backstage about their loss. Tess tells them not to worry, that he has a great idea that will make people talk about the Unamericans for years. And I have no idea what he means by that. Later that night, Tess says, that this explains it. Tess says that he's going to burn up the American flag.
Yeah, he goes through an obsession with trying to burn the American flag in this feud, right?
I mean, that's pretty much his entire gimmick.
Yeah, well, he needed something.
So, cue to later in the night, Unamericans come out to the ring, and Tess has a nice little blowtorch and says that it's about time that the Americans realize what the rest of the world thinks about America. He then takes out the blowtorch and is about to set the flag on fire. And then we cut to the stage, just a wide shot of the Titantron. Red pyro goes off, and it teases Kane's return. You've seen these little promos pop up and pyro go off the last few weeks, saying that the end is coming. I don't remember exactly what it says, but they keep hyping up that Kane's going to return, but nothing happens. He doesn't actually come out. Booker T comes out and Goldust come out to stop this unpatriotic act, and the Un-Americans start beating down on the two. And then the pyro goes off again, and the future mayor of Knox County comes out, Kane, and he comes out with a new look. So the Kane that I remember always had that like half mask. He didn't have that before. He had the full mask covering up his face. He debuts this new mask, and then he comes in, clears out the Un-Americans in the most patriotic way you could possibly imagine. And then he does the Kane-a-rooney. Instead of the spin-a-rooney, it's the Kane-a-rooney. So just imagine this 7-foot-tall dude wearing a red-ass mask, made pyro come out of the ring post. He just starts breakdancing. It's great.
So, yeah, we've talked about how this is a weird team to defend America, but I can't help but think that Kane is one of the weirdest people to defend America. He literally does not care about his country at any point. And now it's like he cares about hellfire, brimstone, and the stars and bars. Like, USA, USA.
Okay, so here's how I justified it in my head when I was watching this. You got the big red machine. You got Bubba Ray Dudley, who looks like every single white guy ever. Like, were you looking at him? He looked like I could have gone to any baseball stadium in America, and he was there. The backwards hat was not a good look for him. He looked like so much like a fan. Like he was obviously like working and doing a good job. So we got the red, we got the white, and then also we got the blue because Goldust likes kicking people in the balls and giving them blue balls. Red, white, and blue. That was, I mean, how do you not see this?
That was oddly patriotic, Bucket. Makes me proud to be an American.
I mean, it's everything. It's all the stuff. You got your goths in there. You got your inner city in there. You got your baseball fans in there. And whatever Goldust is, it's all, that is America. And
he represents the freaks of America. Because God knows America's full of the weirdest people around.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's go to the next week on Raw. Kane defeats Lance Storm and Christian in a 2-on-1 handicap match. And then Tess comes down, starts beating up on the big red machine. You know who comes out to save Kane? John Bradshaw Layfield, before he was JBL.
Oh, I forgot he was still around.
Where was he? He wasn't on this pay-per-view.
So he gets hurt. I think Bubba essentially replaced.
That makes sense.
I think he replaced Bradshaw, but Bradshaw was supposed to be in this feud at some point.
Well, that makes sense because in this whole build-up, Bubba Ray Dudley is kind of built as like the working man. You know, he's the working class hero, and that fits Bradshaw at this point to a T.
Right. The next week, Kane and Bradshaw face the tag team champions in a title bout. Kane and Bradshaw's common bond is that they're both passionate about their politics. Kane's a libertarian at the time. Bradshaw's a Republican, and I'm sure in their minds they were just both thinking, let's go kick some un-American liberal ass! Let's go! So later that night, they have the match. Late in the match, Test and William Regal both come in and interfere. And I think just William Regal is just like, okay, I'm British. I'm an un-American as well. I count. So he joins in, and then Test Big Boots Bradshaw. Regal hits him with the brass knucks. Un-Americans retain the title. And then later in the night, Booker T and Goldust go to a no contest with Test and William Regal after, shocker, Christian and Lance Storm interfere in the match. And then Kane and Bradshaw come out to even the odds. And then the next week on Raw, I think they say that Bradshaw got hurt on a house show the week before. So he just kind of disappears.
Those house shows are always what get you.
Yeah, it's happened to Seth Rollins,
Yep.
happened to just all the big names. September 16th, Raw. Booker T beats Test in a one-on-one match. Later in the night, Lance Storm and Christian beat Bubba Ray and Spike Dudley. And during that match, there's a very, very awesome spot where Spike gets thrown through a table from like inside of the ring to the outside, and they just essentially kill Spike Dudley.
Oh, man.
So he dies, and they have a celebration of life for him. Later in the night, Kane beats William Regal via DQ after Test jumps in the ring. And then Bubba Ray, Booker, and Goldie all run down to save Kane. And then they challenge them to a match. And that's how we got there.
Let me tell you, in this match, all 8 of the people in this match, William Regal, Test, Christian, Lance Storm, Booker T, Goldust, Kane, Bubba Ray, they're all super over. And this is a hot crowd the entire night, but man, they're over with the crowd, I thought.
As much as a mess as this could have been, this was like one thing that I've kind of noticed, like if this trend continues, they are really good in this era of like having that opening match that like pops the crowd.
Yeah.
Like this one let everyone get their shit in. With all the moving parts, it could have gone wrong. It did exactly what I would want it to do, and that just like everyone, it was blah. Oh, and then toward the beginning too, there was like this random spot where like Goldust and Bubba are both hitting like the punches, and the guy just like goes back and forth. Like, that spot was like, I don't know what it was about that spot. I think Bubba does those punches, and just having like Goldust go in on it is like it was like as I said, the perfect kind of thing to just like get the crowd hype.
I think all 8 men in this match are super underrated in their own ways. And I got to think about it, like Bubba Ray never got to be Bully Ray in WWE. Christian was kind of always looked at as second fiddle to Edge. Goldust just now getting his recognition as Dustin Runnels in 2020. Booker T's always highly underrated. We'll see that later. Test. Regal only started to get recognition with NXT, stuff like that.
None of these people got their time in the sun.
Yeah.
Kane's really the only one that Kane and Booker arguably got some time to shine, but there are several other people in this match that deserve to have a main event push.
Does anyone remember why JR screams, "He's a sacrificial American lamb"?
No.
That line. I wish I could...
missed that.
It was just like so many... I think he put his adjectives in the wrong order. Why didn't he say American sacrificial lamb?
Yeah.
But he just... he got it out, and I'm talking about it now, so I guess he did his job.
Yeah. It's very strange.
Commentary is so good in this. Maybe I'm biased because this is what I came up in, but these guys were like killing it on this show.
Yeah.
They were good until Lawler had to talk about women.
Yeah, well, we'll get to that later. But the finish to this match is, everyone's just hitting finishers left and right. Lance Storm slides in and lines up for the super kick behind Kane. Kane turns around and Storm just kind of continues to stand there. I think they were waiting for Regal to interfere or something. And then Regal slides in to attack Kane. But then Kane just chokeslams Storm, punches Regal, and then turns right back around and pins Lance Storm. It was it was a good finish. It was just really awkward, I thought. I felt like something was off.
A lot of the tail end of this match seemed very rushed.
Yeah,
even immediately after Kane gets the win, he just runs back out, grabs the American flag, starts waving it around, and then does his pyro, and that pretty much ends it. But like the tail end of this match just seemed really fast paced, a little bit too fast paced.
Well, and Bubba Ray's the one that goes under the ring to get the flag at first, which is hilarious because the crowd's like, oh, he's getting a table! Tables! And then he pulls out the American flag, which is really strange because, all right, kayfabe here. Usually your stuff under the ring, and it gets broken a lot, but usually your stuff under the ring is like production stuff that can be taken advantage of. So it would make sense that they have tables under there. They're going to need tables to set stuff on. You need a ladder to hang your lights. There's screwdrivers and stuff. The American flag under there.
What do they need a sledgehammer for?
Yeah, well, in my opinion, Triple H has just started hiding that in the ring before the shows. Like, he does a quick look around real quick and slides it under. But the American flag under there, like, are they just going to play the anthem halfway through the show or something?
Usually in those big stadiums, they have a big American flag like hanging from the rafters, so they wouldn't need to bring their own.
Could have just done that. Could have had Bubba Ray Dudley go up in the corner and do the WrestleMania point at an American flag hanging out over the crowd, and everyone's like, oh, there it is.
I'm glad you pointed out this obvious fault in the match, because even though I liked this match, there were some issues that I had with it. Why did William Regal think the shirt tucked into the tights was a great look for him?
It's a bad look.
It's a really bad look. Why is Bubba Ray always asking an African-American gentleman to go get his tables for him? It is a very concerning thing. Like, Bubba, you can get your own tables. You had Devon, like, you're telling him that your entire career, Devon, get the tables. Devon wasn't in this match. So who does he turn to? Doesn't turn to Goldust. Doesn't turn to Kane. Kane has the biggest arms. It's most logical for him to go get the table.
He's the strongest one.
It will bother him the least. Exactly.
Right.
But he turns to the one other person of color and he goes, Booker, go get my table. You seen the Royal Rumble where Bubba came back for no good reason?
Yep.
Who
Just
did he
him.
turn to? Who did he turn to?
R-Truth.
R-Truth! Get the tables. I'm sure Bubba is a very lovely human being when he's not bullying people.
Seems like a nice guy sometimes. That's why they call him Bully Ray.
He needs to check his privilege.
We've been shitting a lot on Test here in the past, like, one or two pay-per-views.
I think it's been completely respectable.
But I think he really had some great spots throughout this match.
Yeah.
He did a really good pop-up powerbomb on Kane. Like, towards
Oh,
the
yeah,
tail
I saw
end.
that. Yeah, I remember that now.
It was really random, but it was executed very well. And then he had a couple of really good big boots on Booker T and Goldust.
Well, @is Test Still Dead on Twitter has not tweeted since our last show, so I don't know what's going on.
The second that they finally see that tweet, we're gonna blow up.
Yeah,
Baby.
right.
We need to make a Twitter account that says, "Is Test still dead?" Dead. Like we just ask the question every day. Is this Twitter account dead? Is this Twitter account dead?
We retweet everything they do. That's all our account's for.
Okay, so the one thing was, I think the last thing I need to say about this is, like, the entire time I was just looking at the TV screen, I was mean mugging it, I was shaking my lid, and I was just like, Kane better get the pinfall. I need to hear this song again. And he did.
Best Kane theme. Slow Chemical. Best Kane theme. So, after this match, even though the Unamericans are incensed that the flag's there and they're talking about other things, Jerry Lawler will not shut up about HLA the entire time.
Saturday Night's gonna have to perform HLA, JR.
So I want to take this moment. Bucket, you infamously did not know what HLA was going into this show. Were you confused at this point? Did you know already what it was?
Okay, so I was so proud of myself because I'm always reading spoilers. Like, a movie comes out, it's like, oh, Sonic the Hedgehog has a post-credit scene, gonna look that up on YouTube. So, like, it's very hard for me to resist that urge. But in this instance, going into this show, you guys had, like, talked it up. You played it up. You were like, hey, you don't know what HLA is? And I swear, whatever you want me to put my handle on, like, I will swear on top of it. And I attest, I had no idea what he was talking about at this time. You can't watch the show without learning.
Yeah.
I have learned.
Well, because they're not saying hot lesbian action at this point. Spoilers, that's what this means, and we'll get into that more later before the match. But Also, they cut to Stephanie McMahon backstage, and she's giving a pep talk to Billy and Chuck. And Billy says that winning tonight is about Stephanie, quote, not having to French kiss a lesbian. So did you know the stipulation at this point, or was that just a no context line?
It didn't hit me immediately because as soon as this is like my first time actually like experiencing Billy and Chuck, so I'm just looking at Chuck and I'm going, "Where's your motorcycle?" And I'm looking at Billy and I'm like, "Where's X-Pac?" So that was not the thing that I was most concerned about at that time. But it wouldn't let me ignore it.
Right.
Throughout the course of the show, it kept bringing it back to my attention.
So up next we have Intercontinental Championship Chris Jericho versus Ric Flair. Jericho's ended up with the Intercontinental title in between shows and kind of a rush job, if you want to talk a little bit about that.
Just a little bit rushed. So we're going to kind of intertwine the storyline with Ric Flair and Chris Jericho with RVD and Triple H's match as well.
Okay.
So night after SummerSlam, it's kind of like the last pay-per-view. Eric Bischoff announces that he's going to unify the Intercontinental title in the Hardcore Championship. And so RVD beats Tommy Dreamer, who was the last Hardcore champion, in what was billed as the last Hardcore title match on Raw. And a little fun fact about the Hardcore title, one of the last times it was ever defended was in our hometown of Evansville, Indiana.
Really?
Stoplight City, bitch!
August 18th of 2002 at Roberts Stadium, Sean Stasiak, Stevie Richards, and Tommy Dreamer all won the title in that night.
What a lineup. What a curtain call for the Hardcore title.
And I think it changed like a handful of times after that, but Tommy was the last one to go into that match against Rob Van Dam in that unification match. And they had a pretty good match. It was pretty good. Same night, Chris Jericho goes and attacks Jimmy Snuka, who was just attacked by 3 Minute Warning. We'll talk a little bit more about them here in a little bit.
We're gonna talk about them. I don't know about you guys. I have some things to say.
Yeah.
As the big Umaga mark, I imagine you do. So he locks a Lion Tamer on Snuka and then calls him a Madison Square has-been. And then complains that Ric Flair is tapped out at SummerSlam. Ric Flair won that match. Chris Jericho was still very unhappy about that. Then Chris Jericho starts singing his own version of New York, New York. And it just talks about how amazing he is. And then gets disqualified in a match against Jeff Hardy.
Now Jeff's still around. I had no clue if he had left for TNA yet or not.
I think it's shortly after Survivor Series he does that. September 16th Raw, Ric Flair loses in an upset match to Rico, who had just jumped over to Raw. We'll get into that whole spiel here in a little bit. Triple H walks backstage and says he wasn't the man that he used to be. Flair just has really lost his smile.
That's going to be such a big theme right now is that, hey, Ric Flair's too old.
It's it's awesome to see what's getting ready to happen.
Yeah.
Later that night, Jericho defeats Rob Van Dam for the Intercontinental title after a lot of interference by Triple H. And then backstage after this match, the only reason I'm bringing this up is because this is like the biggest meme right now. Jericho's walking backstage with the Intercontinental title, holding 2 big bottles of a little bit of the bubbly.
Oh, okay.
He is not.
That's where it started.
It's the origin of a little bit of the bubbly. He's like walking backstage and he's just like spraying the hair people with champagne, and he's all excited that he just won the IC title. And then he tells Bischoff that he wants Flair at Unforgiven, and Bischoff obliges. That's basically how we got there.
I do want to talk about, you tweeted this out. I remember this from a Reddit post a couple years back. I don't know if you saw it, Bucket. They did not. So they used to have the pre-match graphics at this point. You'd see like Shawn Michaels. They'd say, hey, Shawn Michaels is up next. And he's like punching himself in the face and getting hyped up and stuff. They have Chris Jericho's. And I don't think they had time to shoot one of him with the Intercontinental title, because there's like a Nintendo 64 JPEG version of the Intercontinental title just floating on Chris Jericho's shoulder. And check our Twitter at RPAPod. We'll tweet this out. We'll put it on Instagram. It's awful.
It's one of the most crudely put together things I've ever seen.
Somebody put that together and went, yeah, it's good.
Vince McMahon probably sat there and saw that and was like, yeah, that's perfectly fine. I see no issue with this.
Vince McMahon was probably watching After Effects tutorials. And he's, now I want to watch an After Effects tutorial narrated by Vince McMahon. You're going to want to download the project files. You can nest whatever you want. I'll use these 3 photos of the big dog.
You gotta crop it. You just get real deep in there and crop it.
Ugh, God. I'm not cropping anything anymore. That's gross. The finish to this is Chris Jericho fakes a leg injury after landing on his feet doing a lion salt, and Flair's just like, all right, hey, call for the trainers. And while the trainers are coming out and Flair's distracted, Jericho sweeps Flair's legs and locks him in the walls of Jericho, and Ric Flair taps out.
It was strategically well done on Jericho's part.
Mm-hmm.
Ric Flair was always the dirtiest player in the game, and now now Jericho's kind of trying to take over that role.
Yep. Jim Ross calls it one of the oldest tricks in the book, like people are just calling out trainers all the time. It's like, oh yeah, I remember when Nick Bockwinkel called out the trainers in San Francisco in NWA back in 1959.
Killer Kowalski always called his doctors down to the ring during the match.
And if you look at the trainer, whenever they cut, the trainer's just kind of like, oh, come on, man, I was coming out here to do my job. Like, he looks so disappointed that he's almost disappointed that there's no injury. He's like, what am I doing here?
That was like the legit trainer, too.
Yeah.
JR dropped his real name. I don't remember what it was. But...
Yeah, Jim Ross probably made up a name. Add legitimacy.
I'm not a huge Ric Flair fan, and Chris Jericho has blocked me on Twitter.
Oh, yeah.
On multiple different accounts, and
Oof.
So
track your IP.
And the last match at SummerSlam between these two was like good. So like begrudgingly, I gotta give it like props. So I was all ready to just shit all over this match. It's like I didn't want to see it the first time. Why would I need to see it the second time? And good God, if they didn't have a good wrestling match. I mean, highlights here. There was a Fozzy Sucks sign that had some of the best penmanship that I've ever seen on a crowd sign before. There was a point where Rick was just like selling the absolute holy hell out of like an abdomen stretch. Like they get real close in on his face. You see his donkey teeth. Like it was like a good moment. Oh, and Jericho one-ups him, because what's Ric Flair known for? Chopping people, going woo, and, like, doing, like, crazy over-the-turnbuckle bumps. So then, like, Jericho, like, I'd never seen it before. Maybe he invented it, but he went over the turnbuckle, too! Do you guys remember that thing?
Yeah.
Oh, my gosh. I was freaking out.
Yeah, he takes a hellacious bump on the outside over that corner post. It's kind of, it almost mirrors the bump on the last episode I talked about, Goldust being thrown over the corner post like he's taking it over the top rope. He just eats it over the top rope. It's crazy. Or over the turnbuckle, excuse me.
Lots of great chops in this match by both men. Mm-hmm. A lot of, like, the stereotypical stuff that Flair does in a match.
Right.
Chop blocks, all that. But it wasn't a very long match, but it was still a pretty decent one.
Yeah, no, very serviceable. I love Flair, and I love Jericho, and we're about to hit, in my opinion, a great run from Ric Flair after everyone was like, oh no, he's done. He brings nothing of value. He's about to get super good once again, because he starts believing in himself once again.
The end of this match that we were talking about with the playing possum leg injury and everything. I missed the finish of the match because I was taking notes on my phone, and they were talking about like, oh, we've seen it happen to so many of a superstar. Like, it happened to Kevin Nash in the middle of a match. And I was just like, I was too busy like freaking out and marking out. It's like, they just brought up Kevin Nash. Like, what?
What? Chris Jericho tore a quad?
and then by the time I like looked back up from taking notes, like the match was over, and I was like, I loved it. It was so good.
So they cut backstage. Eric Bischoff's hanging out. He's talking to Rosie and Jamal. 3-minute warning. Now, this is their first appearance on the podcast. Bucket, did you recognize Jamal?
Oh, instantaneously. Instantaneously.
See, now I feel like a dumb kid because I had no clue that he was Umaga when I watched Umaga in real time during his run until I read it somewhere on a dirt sheet. And I was like, what happened to Rosie? And Rosie was just released at that point.
You see, what I have the experience of is like knowing Umaga first and reading his Wikipedia page ad nauseum. So like, so I was freaking out that he had been in the company before.
Yep.
I had no clue. Like I verbally, like I said, I love you, brother. Like as soon as he popped up on screen.
I did love that Eric Bischoff goes, guys, we're on a roll. Did you see what Jericho just did to Flair? This is our night. But like, they're both on Raw, right? I don't know what he was getting at.
It evens out. One person from Raw won, one person from Raw lost.
Oh, he's like, oh yeah, we're 1-1 after one match. Well, I guess they're
2-2.
Yeah, 2-2 with the 8-man tag. Bischoff puts Rico in 3-minute warnings corner, and Rico, this may not be believable, they had him pinned as the next breakout guy.
In the Ruthless Aggression documentary about John Cena, it's mentioned that Cena was discovered because they were doing a lot of talent scouting on Rico. Mm-hmm. And they were like, oh, who's this other guy? Who's this prototype guy? He seems pretty cool. And I think one person got a really good deal out of that whole situation. One person, not so much.
Yeah. Yeah, Rico is such a strange choice. But when you see footage of him in OVW, you understand why he was pinned as the next breakout guy. And then they put him up on the roster and gave him that gimmick, and it's just like, oh, he's just there.
You're going to be a personal stylist to
a
lukewarm, kind of popular tag team, and then you're going to go to a very green heel tag team? What could go wrong?
And for all you Tekken fans out there, did anyone else notice that, all one of you Tekken fans, Rico was dressed just like Heihachi Mishima? Just going to put that out there.
Huh. I'm going to have to look that up. I haven't played enough Tekken to know.
He wears a lot of tiger skin.
Oh, okay. Well, that makes sense.
Okay, I think I've made that joke while we've played that before.
You did, and I didn't get it at the time.
Rico walks into frame, and he looks at Jamal and Rosie and was like, I know Billy and Chuck inside and out.
Oh, yeah.
How many gay references, how many gay jokes can we try to make in one show?
They were heavy on those double innuendos, triple entendres. Sorry, I don't know if I'm using the correct word or not.
Please tell me.
They were worse than double entendres. They were triple entendres.
Yeah, so, right after this, they show Shaquille O'Neal sitting at ringside, and this isn't very notable, but his son is sitting right next to him.
Just beats the living shit out of him.
He looks so unimpressed to be there, and then they're like, hey, look, Shaquille O'Neal's in the crowd. And his son just starts punching the shit out of Shaq in the face twice. He's like, I don't know what grudge he had against his father. He's like, this is for Kazam, pow. Like, this is for Shaq Fu, kabow. Like, got him hard twice, and you can tell by the end of it, Shaq was like, all right, stop, hey, quit.
He turns out to be a huge Chris Jericho mark and knows what's going to happen years later when he becomes the guest Raw GM.
I found out recently, this really doesn't have anything to do with wrestling, but I found out the only basketball player that my wife, Mrs. Bucket, is like aware of is Shaquille O'Neal.
Oh yeah, he's got crossover appeal.
Like, she doesn't know who LeBron James is, but she knows who Shaquille O'Neal is.
Shaq has a soda. He has Shaq soda. He's got video games. He's starring in things. I saw him on an ad for a printer the other day, like printer ink at Staples.
He's best friends with the General.
Yeah, that's true.
He was in Scary Movie, one of them with Dr. Phil.
Oh man, God, I forgot about that. Yeah, he shows up in the Heat jersey. Man, he's everywhere.
Doesn't he own like Papa John's now? Isn't he the new Papa?
Yeah, he is Papa John himself.
We need to just skip over a match and just like take all the time that we were going to use talking about, I don't know, Rob Van Dam versus Triple H, and just talk about everything that Shaq's ever done.
We're a Shaq podcast now.
Goddamn right we are.
Welcome to the Love Shack.
Ruthless, shackless aggression.
After this, we get to Eddie Guerrero versus Edge. And I say this as a huge fan of both Edge and Eddie Guerrero. When they came out, I was like, why are we doing this again?
We had a decent match with him at SummerSlam, but we have to do this again?
Yeah.
I just think it's really funny because they haven't figured out what to do with these guys yet.
Yeah.
I know I said this last time, but it's like, wait, how long are we going to wait until we get Ultimate Opportunist and true, not I think they may have called him Latino Heat here, but I mean Latino Heat,
Well, so the whole build to this was pretty much, hey, these two dudes are angry at each other, right?
It's that, and it also involves Rikishi's butthole.
Okay.
All right.
So, okay, I'm glad you brought that up
Let's talk about
because he wasn't on the last pay-per-view we watched. But he may have showed up in flashbacks in the last pay-per-view. I don't remember.
Rikishi.
So, I thought that I was just I was sitting there and I was like, why isn't Rikishi on any of these shows? Am I only going to see him in flashbacks? And then I, almost instantaneously regretted thinking that
Oh, yeah,
a
that's gonna
little
come back to-
later on in the show.
Little did you know what was going to happen at the end of this show.
That's going to come back to bite you.
It's like evil genies. You make a wish and it comes true, but in the most terrible way.
You said, oh, what happened to Rikishi? And a monkey's paw curled.
Exactly.
So, as we discussed last time, I feel like I'm going to say this 6 times tonight. They had a match. Edge won that match at SummerSlam by using his opposite shoulder that was not hurt. The next SmackDown, August 29th SmackDown, Eddie beats Edge in a number 1 contenders. It's basically a tournament, but it's several matches.
I read about that, and the review I read was that everyone was confused as shit as to what was going on because it was billed as a tournament, and then it was a gauntlet. Didn't it start? It was wasn't it Edge versus Eddie at the beginning of the night, and then one of them won, and then later on they were like, oh, and now he's got to face Rikishi, and then they won, and it was like, oh, Matt Hardy, but they were calling it a tournament?
So it was basically a gauntlet match that happened over an entire show.
Oh, well, that's pretty cool.
You open up the match with Eddie and Edge. Next match is Rikishi versus Eddie.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the next one is Eddie versus Benoit, or Rikishi versus Benoit. I can't remember which one.
Right.
And then it finishes off the night Benoit, Angle, and Undertaker.
Mm-hmm.
We'll discuss that one a little bit later. But that was incredibly confusing.
Yeah.
Because I was waiting, as soon as they got done with this match, I was waiting for the next one to happen. And then it cuts backstage and they're teasing who's going to go next. It was very confusing. Next SmackDown, September 5th, Edge teams up with Rikishi and The Undertaker to beat Eddie, Kurt Angle, and Chris Benoit in the main event. Edge spears Eddie, rubs Eddie's face in Rikishi's butt. For some reason.
This makes me think that Rikishi's butt's just at ringside. Just to use as a weapon.
They had a t-shirt at the time that it just says back that ass up.
Ooh.
And I just imagine an actual ass sitting on that t-shirt, and that's how they do it.
A little bit of a fun fact. This is just a side note, but I work for the World Wrestling Alliance, and at one point we did book Rikishi to come in for the main event, and we pulled up his Too Cool theme to play, and he said, nah, I enter to Back That Ass Up by Juvenile now. He was one of the nicest dudes ever, though. Rikishi's a great guy.
I wanted to go to that show so bad, but my cousin Travis was getting married.
Ah.
I like Travis. I like
shout out
Katie.
to Travis. Fuck you, dude.
Fuck you, cousin.
No, they're a very nice couple.
You're just mad because you didn't get to see Chuck Taylor versus Joey Ryan that night.
Quit reminding me.
Edge spears Eddie, rubs Eddie's face in Rikishi's butt, and then gets a last ride from Taker. That ends that match. The next week, we kind of get the origins of Los Guerreros. Eddie and Chavo team together to face John Cena and Edge. And the Los Guerreros win the match. And after the match, Eddie and Chavo try to embarrass Edge for the stink face that happened the week before. Chavo pulls his pants down, implying that Edge is going to get a stink face from Chavo's regular-sized butt. Edge fights back and then shoves Eddie's face into Chavo's butt. And it's a great segment. And then you cut backstage immediately after, and it's just Eddie just pouring just several bottles of water over his face. yelling at Chavo, saying, "Why didn't you wipe?" That's
Gross.
literally just the entire argument. He's sitting there yelling in Spanish, and then, like, the very end, he just speaks in English. He's like, "Why didn't you wipe?"
That's good writing.
And then the last week, it basically just ends, like, Eddie and Chavo beat down on Rikishi and Edge. There's a wicked chair shot to the head on Edge during this segment. Edge bleeds open. It's pretty brutal. Seems a little extra for how this story's been going so far, but that's kind of how it happened.
Yeah, so also Edge, for some reason, seems way more over here than at SummerSlam. I mean, it was a hot crowd, but they just keep cutting to Edge signs. Everyone's loving him. And Eddie targets Edge's head and neck the whole time, which is not aged well. The whole time I'm like, oh no, oh no, oh no. I mean, he's back by now. As an update to our last episode, Edge did return in the Royal Rumble.
I told you motherfuckers this was going to happen.
I
We didn't believe
definitely... I'm sorry, I didn't mean to talk over you,
No, go
but
ahead.
I do have to eat crow. I think I had some pretty harsh language. If you think Edge is coming back at the Royal Rumble, there must be something wrong with you. And I was in the same room as this gentleman who I said it to. And you think you know me, and I didn't know anything at that point. Apparently everything in my life had been a lie, and I apologize. I'm glad he's back.
Yep.
He's doing good stuff. I'm sorry, Jake.
We had a room of 10 people sitting in my apartment, and I scared every single one of them when I heard the, "You think you know me?" And I just start jumping up and down, start shoving Bucket all over the place, and was like, "Let's go!" I was hype.
And I wanted to be excited but couldn't because I had so vehemently put my foot down, and it was like I could have gotten my hopes up. For once in my life, I could have gotten my hopes up and not been let down, but I didn't let my hopes get up, so they didn't have any.
I was in a hotel room in Florida on the phone with my wife when Edge came out, just watching the Rumble on a laptop, and she thought I was getting attacked. She was like, "What's going on?" I was like, oh no, oh what? I thought I was going to get a noise complaint.
I'm genuinely surprised I didn't get a noise complaint in my apartment.
So at one point, Eddie goes for a rope walk Hurricane Rana. Edge reverses it into a sit-out powerbomb. And Eddie's doing a lot of... I mean, he's doing some great spots, but he's doing some great character work here. I already loved Eddie Guerrero, but I'm gaining such a new appreciation for him in this podcast.
Felt, because I was not excited to watch this match because I was like, oh, they don't know how to manage Edge and Eddie yet. And so I was, but with this match especially, I was right. Like, you beat me to saying it. Like, I am now, I think officially for the first time, an Eddie Guerrero fan, because his heel work here was like I was buying the actual legitimate heat. Like, Edge could have really wanted to kill him, and then Eddie was being such a piece of shit the entire time. He had just this like swagger, and he was like, and what I really like, they do really weird stuff that people don't do anymore, like in this match. Like, it was all unique. Like, you know, sometimes with like wrestling, like you have everyone do like the same cookie cutter moves. When I was watching ROH in like 2007 or whatever, just everyone doing brainbusters. Nowadays in WWE current landscape, everyone's doing suicide dives and whatever, but like there was like a real flavor to this match that I'm all in on Eddie Guerrero.
There was some really entertaining chain wrestling at the beginning of this.
I love chain wrestling.
We had that talk last week when we went to a WWA show, and that's like the first thought that popped up in my head. There was a lot of good submission moves by Eddie where he's attacking Edge's neck. And regardless of the whole mentality of like injuring somebody's head, there was a lot of unique moves trying to sell that point.
A kneeling cravat. He did like this weird thing where he wrapped Edge's arms like in his legs. Like, it was very visually striking offense.
Even the finish here, I mean, Edge tries for a superplex. Eddie smashes Edge's face onto an exposed turnbuckle that they had, you know, opened earlier in the match. Eddie sunset flips Edge and grabs the tights for a pin. Great match, but also Michael Cole just offhandedly mentions that Edge has a concussion. Like, he hasn't been checked or anything. He's like, even concussed, Edge is still looking around, or whatever his line was.
That guy won, I think he won a Merle or something. He was like an award-winning journalist for CBS at one point. Doesn't cite his sources here. Kind of disappointing.
Oh my gosh, my favorite part of the entire match is like how that finish was constructed. Eddie did not have to grab the tights. Like, I think that was enough of an offense and like sneaky enough that we could have gotten away with that. But the fact that he had the audacity to grab the tights on top of it, I was just like, you piece of shit. I am ride or die with you. Oh. Sorry.
Oh no!
Oh, man.
I didn't plan that.
Oh, man.
I feel terrible.
Rest in peace, Eddie.
How many? Like, this is 2002. What do we get? Like 3
more years, I think. Yeah,
roughly
3 years.
Such a goddamn. I'm only now just realizing this in 2020.
Yep.
Like, I'm so behind.
This is one of the things I am excited about you experiencing all of these pay-per-views, because we've had discussions before about how awesome Eddie is, and you haven't really been able to appreciate it. You've just seen him as this martyr that everybody loves Eddie, and now you get to see just how amazing he really was.
He's earning it. Like, I totally get it now.
Right.
And I apologize for being so wrong.
You didn't see the guy. You can't help that.
Yeah. So after this, Triple H is backstage. He goes to the Raw locker room. It has Flair, Rob Van Dam, Spike Dudley, and Tommy Dreamer just hanging out,
and Johnny the Bull Stamboli.
I was about to ask that. I didn't know. You see like a quick flash, and I'm like, who is that? I wrote Bull Buchanan.
He's really good at this time. At any time there's a backstage segment in a locker room, he's really good about standing right next to the person that's about to be focused on, and then just walks off camera. He did that several times in the Raws leading up to this show, and then I noticed that again, and was like, you get your time, Johnny the Bull Stamboli.
He feels like one of those old PC point-and-click adventures where you gotta, like, click on Johnny the Bull before you go to your objective, and he moves out of the way of what you're supposed to click. Triple H says Rob Van Dam has no passion or desire, and it's very, like, worked shoot of Triple H. We're hitting this era with Triple H where it seems like he's letting his true feelings be known about the roster, and then he's like, no, it's just a promo.
I loved how I saw parallels here, except replace Triple H with Stone Cold Steve Austin and replace RVD with the former Dean Ambrose. Like,
oh yeah,
like it was almost like that. Like, there's this huge ideological difference of like, it's wrestling, it's no big deal. Yeah. No, it's the biggest deal in the world. So that was like really weird. I thought it was a really strong line from Triple H, but RVD had like a really weak ass response.
That seems to be a theme in this feud, is that Triple H just goes out there and cuts a massive promo, just cutting down Rob Van Dam, and Rob Van Dam's like, yeah, so what? But then Triple H focuses his attack on Flair. And he's like, oh, yeah, that guy used to be good, too. And he's pointing at Johnny the Bull Stamboli off screen, and Ric Flair was like, who, me?
No, you idiot.
We can't forget, Triple H does say ruthless in this promo.
Ruthless.
He does.
Which is like the Where's Waldo moment. We just gotta wait for them to drop the word ruthless once in every show.
He said it.
And, I was seriously sitting here during this promo going like, wait, how do we get to Evolution from here? Like, he just insulted Rick. He's supposed to be like his grandpa later. So like, how do we, and you know, that question gets answered sooner rather than later.
Well, sooner, we're going to have to sit through Billy and Chuck versus 3-minute warning. Bischoff has to kiss a butt versus Stephanie has to get with a lady.
Oh,
This is
Christ.
bad. This is a prime example of like the Ruthless Aggression era is when it became uncool to watch wrestling again. I don't think any of my friends in high school, outside of one or two, knew that I watched wrestling or middle school or any of that, because there were things happening like HLA, which is obviously not aged well at all, but it wasn't great at the time either.
What's surprising is they still tried to sell that point even after the initial HLA moment
Yeah.
just bombed.
Yep.
And it was like, we're going to go all in on this. Fuck you, we're going in.
It was bad. So, does anyone want to explain kind of the build-up before before we get into, HLA stands for Hot Lesbian Action.
Hot lesbian action!
It is an awful ratings ploy to be fair, by a heel general manager, Eric Bischoff, in response to Billy and Chuck's gay wedding ceremony on SmackDown, which was getting a lot of buzz in the media, and also the Gay and Lesbian Alliance Against Defamation were all in on this.
Little did they know what was going to happen in the next few weeks.
Well, and they're a reputable organization, and they're being reassured by Vince McMahon and people at this point, like, hey, it's going to go off without a hitch. It's great. SmackDown was taped on Tuesdays. They were told, yeah, the ceremony went great. It went great for a wrestling in-ring wedding ceremony, I guess.
It went exactly how you would expect a gay wedding ceremony
Yeah.
at a wrestling show would go down.
They sent Vince McMahon a gravy boat. They sent him a gravy boat, like a nice gravy boat. I don't know why, but that was their gift for, doing a pretty progressive storyline, especially for the time.
Vince gets a weird boner anytime he eats turkey at Thanksgiving. He just looks at that and just thinks about lesbians.
This is not good.
They would sit there and they're just like, what do straight people like?
Yeah, exactly.
Gravy.
It's like it was an angle written about gay people by straight people.
I guarantee there was not a single person that even tried to ask a gay person
No.
what they thought should happen here.
No. So yeah, go ahead and just fill us in a little bit on how this all came about.
Let's since we are first introduced to 3 Minute Warning in this podcast, let's break down a little bit of their history. Matt and Hawaii, did I say that right?
Yeah, I think
Is that how you say their name? Okay.
I'm not sure.
Okay, Matt and Hawaii and Eddie Fatu were better known as the Island Boys in WWE's developmental company, Heartland Wrestling Association. They both came from the famous Hawaii Samoan family. Fatu would eventually become the Bucket's favorite heel of all time, Umaga. Hawaii is the brother of the more famous Roman Reigns. He would later end up becoming in a tag team with the Hurricane, one of my favorite gimmicks of his. Becomes a superhero in training.
Wait a second, that hasn't happened yet?
No.
No.
Oh no.
So 3 Minute Warning is introduced to the WWE Universe on the July 22nd episode of Raw. They're essentially Bischoff's henchmen. Bischoff would give superstars a limited amount of airtime week to week, hoping that someone might impress them. Kind of let's do the Ruthless Aggression thing. Try to impress me. When Bischoff would get bored, he would then go and tell him, okay, your 3 minutes are up. And then Rosie and Jamal would just go in and destroy whoever it was. Let's go ahead and name off some of the people that they've destroyed. Sean Stasiak, D'Lo Brown. We mentioned in the last podcast, Lillian Garcia. A great moment where they destroy the Fabulous Moolah and Mae Young. And then our favorite person that's going to be mentioned, Mini Dust.
Oh yeah,
The Mini Gold Dust.
They reference this in the middle of the match. They're like, one of them's, I think the Samoans are working over someone in the corner, and then you have to listen to Michael Cole list them all up. D'Lo Brown, Stephanie McMahon, Mae Young, Mini Dust, Big Show, Lillian Garcia, Jeff Hardy, lesbians.
Yeah, it just yells out lesbians.
Not even the lesbians.
No, just lesbians.
Lesbians.
Like, wow, all of them?
Just every lesbian that's ever existed.
God, it's so dehumanizing.
It's
awful.
I don't like. I super respect you for watching all of that happen, but I could not get more enjoyment after watching all those squash matches and just hearing Michael Cole list them off one after another.
It's, that was a list that Vince made him write. And
Yeah.
It just, as he reads that off, he's just like, it's so unnatural, but it makes it even better because it's so unnatural.
And the list was all typed out, and then written in marker at the bottom was lesbians.
Lesbians.
Because they were like, yeah, let's just throw that one in there too.
Oh, man. Billy and Chuck formed a tag team towards the end of the 2001 Invasion angle. Palumbo was kicked out of the alliance at one point and formed a tag team with Billy Gunn. They became friendly with each other, showing what many people would consider more flamboyant tendencies. They seemed like they were kind of a flamboyant couple at some point. They held the tag team titles twice. They mainly feuded with the APA and the Hardys before that point. We're going to fast forward to the September 5th SmackDown. After Billy Gunn loses a singles match to Rey Mysterio, Rico comes out and says that tonight is going to be one of the greatest nights of Billy's life. Chuck walks out to the ring, and then Rico looks at Chuck and tells him to pull out that love. And then Chuck just like bends down into the front of his tights and then pulls out an engagement ring. And then Chuck asks Billy to be his life partner. Billy says yes. They celebrate with a hug. We're going to give ourselves a gay wedding in the next week on SmackDown.
It's a short time to plan a wedding, but Rico did it.
He somehow pulled that off.
Maybe that's why he turns evil against them spoilers. He's like, you expected me to do this in 1 week?
So there was a time period where my wifey, Mrs. Bucket, she rolled into the room and like watched the show with me, and of course she comes in during this match.
Oh yeah.
She's like, who are these guys? And I'm like, that's Billy and Chuck, and she's like, who, the Baywatch boys? I love her so much.
They pull off the John Morrison gimmick beforehand, just start running in slow motion down to the ring. One of my favorite things about that SmackDown is I think Cole only calls it a gay wedding once the entire night. Everybody else just refers to it as like a commitment ceremony or something similar to that. And I don't think it's ever really referred to as a gay wedding except for a handful of times. It's really weird. So let's fast forward to that next Monday Night Raw where we're going to be introduced to HLA.
Yeah, crowd loved it. HLA. It's easy to chant.
It's catchy.
It's catchy. It shouldn't be.
It shouldn't be, but for some reason it's very popular to a lot of the men.
Oh, yeah.
Bischoff complains how Billy and Chuck's commitment ceremony was getting a ton of mainstream attention. He says he's going to introduce some counter content on Raw, and then he says he's going to have some HLA tonight, hot lesbian action. And so Jerry Lawler just absolutely loses his shit once he hears those words. Every match that night, it could be like Big Show out there, it could be a Divas match. He's not talking about the actual match. He's just talking about hot lesbian action.
Yeah, you could hear audibly Jerry Lawler doing cartwheels on the headset. He was losing it up there.
At one point during the night, Terry and Trish Stratus walk past the locker room backstage, and it just has a giant sign that says lesbians on it.
I saw this, and it's very clearly just a broom closet.
Yeah.
That they just slapped a sign on that said lesbians.
Yep. Later in the night, Spike Dudley's getting ready for a match where he basically just jobs out to Triple H. And he walks past the lesbian locker room, and the lesbians walk out, and they say, hey, good luck with your match. And then they ask if he's going to wish them good luck as well. Spike asks what for, and then the lesbians just say, for hot lesbian action. And then the crowd loses it. One of the best promos of the night is Booker T, Goldust, Kane, and Bradshaw are backstage talking about how they're just like all kind of a different group of people and how they're excited to take on the Unamericans. and then it just takes a weird left turn towards the end, and Booker T just goes, "You know what else I'm really excited for tonight, boys? Some hot lesbian action."
Everyone has to talk about it.
Yeah, but it's mentioned like in every segment.
Here's my question. If you go to the darker, more seedy sides of the internet, there are abbreviations for illicit, material that you can partake in, right? Is HLA a pre-established, subsection of the adult entertainment industry, or did they just make up that acronym?
I think it was just made up, right?
I'm sure it was just made up.
They're like, well, we can't say hot lesbian action the whole time. That's too many syllables. But then they do.
Jerry Lawler can't talk that much about lesbians.
Jerry Lawler's going to be tripping all over his words if we get him to say too much stuff.
I don't know why they chose. I mean, I guess in storyline, I understand why they chose that one, but why wouldn't they choose something like pre-existing? I don't know, you ready for some BBW? Why? They just made it up.
It's very strange. Also, they made a T-shirt for hot lesbian action at this point too. If I remember correctly, it said HLA, and it just had the trucker mud flap girl, the silhouette. It's the second worst WWE shirt in history, right after the APA's always pounding ass bar and grill shirt.
I wish I could have a physical conversation with someone who bought an HLA shirt.
I don't.
Stay
away from me. Get out of here.
It would be such a fascinating case study.
The entire time Jerry Lawler's like, we're going to see a woman kiss another woman. Woo!
Woo!
And it's on live cable TV. Even if you're into that thing, it'll hey, they're hugging. The most unconvincing lesbians as well. They're just kind of there. You can tell they are not comfortable with this. They're just kind of oh yeah, let me grab your shoulder.
So, according to the online world of wrestling, and I tried to find a more realistic source, but I couldn't.
That's pretty reputable.
The lesbians were Looney Lane and Savvy Sasha from Ultimate Pro Wrestling. It's the same promotion that gave us Samoa Joe and John Cena.
UPW, yeah.
And they also gave us the lesbians.
Christopher Daniels worked there too. It's a stacked alumni.
It brought some great people. Bischoff standing out in the ring asked some really gross, inappropriate sexual questions to the lesbians. Then the lesbians start to make out. The crowd goes apeshit. It just feels gross the entire time I'm watching this.
Yeah.
Especially since my fiance is sitting right next to me as we're watching this.
Oh no.
She was very grossed out by this.
I watched this holding my newborn daughter. And I mean, she doesn't understand anything yet, but I was like, don't worry. Things have gotten a lot better.
Don't become a wrestler, sweetie.
Yeah. If you are, don't watch 2002.
Yeah, just stay away from that. Bischoff stops them from making out. He makes them strip down to their bras and thongs and convinces them to make out again. The crowd just absolutely is... I'm surprised we don't see people actually trying to masturbate in the crowd.
Yeah.
It's
just everyone looking around realizing, hey, it's really weird for all of us to be here with boners.
Just a crowd.
This is very strange.
16,000 men with hard-ons.
Yeah.
He stops them. He says that violence and sex sell. And we've had plenty of sex, but not nearly enough violence. And I'm afraid, ladies, that this segment has gone 3 minutes too long.
Oh, no.
Cue Rosie and Jamal, and this turns into the weirdest snuff film you've ever seen in your entire life. They just absolutely destroy them. Samoan drops. I think Rosie does the moonsault off the top rope and just destroys both of them. It's a terrifying segment. And it really, really pisses off the network. TNN's the network that's showing this show. They're the ones that are airing Raw. And they're absolutely furious about this. They have to release a statement the next day talking about how bad this was. And it just says, TNN takes serious issue with the content of Monday Night Raw. and has expressed deep concern to WWE. We don't condone the content of the episode, and we will work diligently to ensure that similar occurrences do not appear again on our network. Wow. Little did they know they were going to get a live sex show 2 years later.
Nah, wait, they were on USA by that point.
Were they? It might have been Spike at that point.
So TNN turns into Spike, and I feel like they were still on Spike at that point.
Huh.
Which at that point, they were showing stuff like Stripperella.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sure that
became the Man Network.
Yeah. I'm sure
it's for men. Don't let your wife watch this.
They changed their attitudes pretty quickly at some point.
Now I understand, because like Michael Cole had like this weirdly good line during the match. 3-minute warning are coming out, and he just goes, "They're equal opportunity ass kickers," and I was like, "Whoa, that's like solid." Yeah. So like now I know they had to say that to justify why. It's like, oh, they weren't beating them up because they were lesbians,
right?
They're equal opportunity ass kissers.
I couldn't kickers. I could not understand if I couldn't decide if that was the best or worst nickname.
I liked it.
Like, that's bad enough. Then let's go to SmackDown that next Thursday for Billy and Chuck's wedding, which, like, they really didn't appear much on the SmackDowns leading up to SummerSlam or Unforgiven. So it was weird just like seeing them all of a sudden, oh hey, we're pushing them into this moment. This is like supposed to be the climax of their gimmick, pun intended. And we're just gonna stop this now. It was kind of strange. Rico comes out to the ring and greets this 90-year-old man minister who's just hanging out. Rico paces up and down the ring, being upset with how everything is laid out. He's mic'd the entire time. So it's like Abraham Washington's gimmick before he got fired for making the Kobe joke.
Yeah.
And he's just standing there the entire time, just making random mumbling. Stephanie comes down to the ring to join him because she agrees to be the witness of this commitment ceremony, despite the fact that technically Rico is the witness of this ceremony. And there's also, 10,000 people sitting in this arena watching the ceremony happen. That was like the reason they got her to come down for this. Billy and Chuck are introduced, and they come down to the ring as a choir of women are singing "It's Raining Men" live.
All right.
It was beautiful. The minister opens up and asks Billy and Chuck to read their vows. Chuck goes first and just kind of says some really mushy shit. And Billy looks up and says, "Damn, that was mushy." And then he said, "But that's what I love about you."
Oh.
It was kind of sweet.
Yeah.
Billy puts the ring on Chuck's finger. Rico introduces a video package featuring Billy and Chuck, and it was a lot of the highlights mentioning stuff, the flamboyant stuff they'd been doing up to that point. It was kind of cute. And the minister then asked if anyone thinks that Billy and Chuck should not commit to each other, they need to speak now. And then we're going to cue, "Come get on the Whoo train."
What? I don't remember this.
The Godfather comes out and brings down a line of women.
Oh no!
They did not put this in the recap package.
No, that was not there.
They should have. They really should have. Godfather announces to everybody that he's back in business. We got to keep that kayfabe. Godfather then looks in the ring and says that he can't believe what he's heard. That he can't believe that Billy Gunn and Chuck are going to get married to each other. He remembers when the ladies couldn't get enough of Billy Gunn.
Oh yeah.
And then Billy's like, "Oh yeah, that's very true." Then the Godfather looks at Chuck and says he was one of the legendary skirt chasers. Says that Chuck was always into the heavier ladies.
Oh yeah.
He was a chubby chaser.
Chuck
apparently.
Palumbo.
Chuck Palumbo, the chubby chaser. And then Godfather asks, "What in the hell's going on here?" Rico starts yelling at the Godfather, tells him he needs to leave. Rico says that nobody in the building wants to see one of the Godfather's good time girls. It was kind of funny. That was a funny line. And then Rico tells Godfather to leave the building. Godfather tells Rico he doesn't know what he's missing. And then he says, you're going to miss a ride down on the train. And then they stroll to the back. The crowd was really into the Godfather.
Well, yeah.
Not surprising at all.
They're probably just like, in this segment, do something else. You know, just anybody could have come out at that point. You could have sent out Coachman. People would be like, oh, good, Jonathan Coachman.
Why is that so funny?
It would have made as much sense as sending out Godfather at this point. Godfather's not even on the roster. Where did they find him?
Oh. Hey, Charles Wright, we really need you. Papa Shango, we really need you to come back.
Oh, if he would have came back as Papa Shango. Just in the middle of the wedding.
Oh, my God. Why did I sit here and watch all of this? Then Rico tells the minister to continue, but go ahead and skip to the last part. And then the minister's standing there, and he looks at Billy and Chuck and goes, Billy, do you pledge your commitment to Chuck? And he says yes. And then the minister says, Chuck, do you go and promise your dedication to Billy? And then Chuck reluctantly
That's really good.
says yes.
That's really good.
Have you been practicing?
Yeah, you have been practicing this.
If I go and talk to your lady friend, is she just gonna be have stories of standing outside the bathroom with her ear pressed to the door and you're just practicing this in the shower?
Yeah, he's just yelling wedding vows in there.
You promised to take this man. The old man starts looking towards the crowd and he says, I now pronounce you. And then he gets kind of cut off by Billy and Chuck. And they stop him. Chuck yells at Rico saying, it wasn't supposed to go this far. Billy
What do they expect?
It's so stupid. Billy says this wasn't supposed to go that far. They're not even gay.
Yeah, I believe Billy Gunn's exact words are, we ain't gay.
We got nothing against people being gay.
Yeah, they don't even say that, do they?
Yeah, he says that.
Yeah, they do, yeah.
We got nothing against people being gay, but we ain't gay.
Well, it's good that they clarified that.
Billy says that this was only supposed to be a big publicity stunt. And then Rico looks at him and says that he knew those two were going to blow it. And then they all start arguing, and then the minister cuts them off. And he says that this is a special moment. This is supposed to be a great moment for Billy and Chuck. And their love's gonna last forever, whether it's 83 years, 16 months, or 3 minutes.
Oh, no.
And then he takes off his prosthetic face, and that old man turns out to actually be the Raw general manager, Eric Bischoff. And then they cut to a really tied up shot of Stephanie, who's just like, what the fuck is about to happen?
Right.
Just freaking out. And so, they start attacking Rico, Billy and Chuck do, and then 3-minute warning comes out and just destroys everything and everyone.
So, hypothetically, say this wedding goes off without a hitch. What does Rico get out of this? What is he doing? Why?
He's pushing an agenda.
I guess.
He knew that this is what WWE needed. He knew that all these organizations really wanted this storyline to succeed.
Yeah, I guess.
And he was just...
He's like, we got a gravy boat.
He was a trailblazer for the LGBT people.
Yeah, Rico's one of the big people in history they talk about.
Jeez. I was aware of this going into it. This is kind of infamous, but everyone goes on and on about Eric Bischoff's octogenarian makeup here.
Yeah.
And it's no joke.
It's really good.
It is. Movies weren't that good at doing makeup yet.
And he peels it off pretty cleanly.
Yeah, he just can't get his eyebrows off.
Right, which is hilarious.
On Eric Bischoff's podcast, 83 Weeks, I kind of stumbled upon this while folding laundry at 2 o'clock in the morning, and I started writing notes down on my phone. He was very happy about how this turned out. He said that was one of the biggest pops he ever had in his life. The only other one he can really compare it to is the time that he debuted on Raw and hugged Vince. That crowd lost their shit. A week prior to this, he had to travel out to Hollywood to a prosthetic company who helped design the Preacher look. And he said he kind of based this character and the voice from his father in Jim Barnett.
I guess I could hear that.
So he kind of based it off of that. And so he had that makeup on several hours before the show started. And so he just kind of walked around backstage and started ribbing people. And he'd just walk up to people he knew and he's just like, "Can I get a little bit of whiskey? You got any whiskey on you?" And just really starts fucking with people. And then they have that moment. And it was great. I kind of wish they would have brought that back for the Lana and Lashley wedding.
And instead the minister just got tackled by the security team.
But he walks back out there and he goes, "It's not Lashley that I'm in love with. I'm in love with you, Lana."
So the match itself is nothing really to write home about. I mean, this is Jamal and Rosie's first match. Really basic. Billy Gunn throws Rico over the top rope to the outside in the finish. Gunn turns around and gets thrown into a pop-up Samoan drop by Jamal, and 3-minute warning pick up the victory. And so now Stephanie McMahon has to perform some hot lesbian action.
There's a point, right, where Rosie and Jamal, in the build-up to this, beat up Stephanie McMahon, right?
That was towards the end of the end of Billy and Chuck's wedding. That was the last big thing. Yep. They beat everybody else up, and then they pick her up for a Samoan drop, and then I think they do the moonsault flip as well.
Oh, dang.
I'm not saying that Stephanie McMahon is the Hillary Clinton of pro wrestling, but there's only one tag team here that attacked Stephanie McMahon, and there's only one tag team here where both the members are dead.
Also, just to point out what a different time this is, Billy and Chuck faked the entire gay wedding and everything for a publicity stunt, and they're the faces. They're the good guys. Also, afterward, Eric Bischoff's backstage with 3 quote-unquote lesbians, and Coachman says, "Hey, which of this great selection are you sending out?" I wish whenever they showed those 3, the Elimination Chamber pod music would play, just just before they pick a woman to send out.
Go!
My favorite part of this entire, I wouldn't even call it part of the match, but the entire Billy, Chuck, HLA, my wife just happens to be in the room for this, and she takes one look at Rico, and she said, "Who is this Derek Zoolander Night at the Roxbury motherfucker?"
So after this, World Heavyweight Championship, Triple H versus Rob Van Dam.
You people deserve your own world champion. Exclusive to Raw, the #1 brand in the history of sports entertainment. You may recognize this world championship. It's been worn by some of the greatest champions in the history of this industry. And now Triple H, it will be again, because ladies and gentlemen, your new world champion, Triple H! I've created the fatal 4-way elimination match for the #1 contender spot. And the winner gets a shot at Triple H and his world title at Unforgiven.
When a competitor is eliminated, they must return to the locker room. The match will continue until there is only one man remaining. Van Dam!
I'm supposed to fear RVD.
You have proven time and time again that, brother, you can spit some water. Grr. I'm Mr. Muscle and Fitness. Grr.
I am Triple H. I am the game. I am the heavyweight champion of the world. This man must become the next world champion. Oh my God.
Rob Van Dam's over his hill. Triple H is an NWA WCW mark. So, like, as soon as they announce a World Heavyweight Championship, that's all on him. He starts wearing suits. I mean, it's a big thing.
He's really building up to his persona when Evolution really becomes a thing.
Yeah, and Raw starts to get booked more like an old school territory where SmackDown kind of looks to the future and is a very in-ring focused product at this time.
Holy shit, that is the best analogy.
Triple H is pretty much trying to be Ric Flair in this era.
And it wasn't just any version of Triple H. It was Blade Trinity Triple H.
Yeah, this is his worst look.
The worst.
Literally, the first comment I have about the match is Triple H really does not need to be a clean-shaven person.
No, that's his worst look. Do you think it's his worst look? Hit us up on Twitter at RPAPod. No context, yes or no.
We're just coming up with one of these every episode now.
Just yes or no. Triple H, is clean-shaven Triple H's worst look? Just let us know.
I like it.
We fast forwarded kind of over this earlier, but like the whole opening, like promo to this pay-per-view, like first of all, that voiceover lady was a mood. Like I don't know what the mood was. I don't know if that was a good voiceover or a bad voiceover. It was a voiceover, and she dropped this line that says the World Heavyweight Championship is a symbol of defiance. And
Is it?
It made me I already like the title and miss the title like a bunch.
Yeah.
But if I think about it, if you're looking at it from WWE's point of view, like, of course that's how they would view it, right? And just kind of like looking at it through that lens and just thinking about it like, oh yeah, like the WCW guy brought it to Raw when they needed a World Heavyweight Championship. And then, you know, like it got shuffled over to SmackDown and like the B show and whatever. And like now like everyone who didn't get a chance like on the main show with the actual title, like they get a run with this title. It's like, oh, I can be popular without your title. I really liked it. It made me happy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It was a symbol of excellence at this point in time, and then it unfortunately kind of becomes what you were saying, just kind of like a step below what the WWE title was.
Yeah, it almost gets treated as like an intercontinental level kind of thing.
Prettiest belt.
I can't argue with that. It's
great.
It's still one of the best looking belts ever made.
Better than the Divas Championship even.
Oh, well, really? Yeah.
Hot take, I know.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
So in this match, Rob Van Dam goes for a plancha over the ropes to the outside, and Triple H just moves, and he just goes to the floor.
Oh,
and it's one of the most painful things I've ever seen.
My tailbone hurt just from seeing that spot.
Yeah. For some reason, Chuck Taylor refers to it as the Sunday Night Heat Bump, and I don't know why, but I think it's like super funny.
You're missing the headline of this match, which was Side Headlock Takeover City, bitch.
Yeah.
The entire, I did a count. Like, I started this match over like 4 times because I kept thinking I was missing a side headlock takeover. And there were 7 different instances of it. I just, oh my god. Like,
that's crazy, yeah.
Because, like, RVD's moveset stresses me out, and there is a point at the very end of this match where he's hitting all the high spots, he's rolling around, and he's doing handstands and whatever. It's like all the stuff that I would never pick in SmackDown vs. Raw, because not even my video game character is that athletic. So, like, just to see him start off this match is just, like, beating him with, like, a really technical wrestling move, I loved it so much.
So, correct me if I'm wrong, Jake, but in the build-up to this, Triple H starts trying to get over the sleeper as a finish, right?
A little bit, yeah.
He starts finishing matches with the sleeper.
Yeah, I think there was... I want to say he beat Spike Dudley and 1 or 2 other people in that match, like, with that finish.
It's another old school thing, you know? He's really drawing upon that old school stuff.
Going back to how we got there, I'll make this really quick, because I've really just gone on and on about these. Triple H was handed the World Heavyweight Championship.
Handed.
Yeah, there wasn't a match for it.
Yeah, that was kind of the disappointing thing. And like you could tell that there was probably a lot of genuine heat backstage, but they also made that in storyline as well.
Yeah.
Like Bubba Ray Dudley had like several instances in like the weeks leading up to this match where he would kind of just shit on Triple H for being handed the title. A lot of people were upset about that, and I think the fans were pretty pissed too. But it does a really good job of putting heat on him. I think regardless, that guy was going to win a tournament and win that title anyway.
And, I mean, Raw's roster, main event-wise, is pretty thin. So if you were to do a tournament right now, you're giving away probably, 8 to 16 matches you could draw out on pay-per-views.
Right.
And we don't get those because Triple H just kind of keeps it the whole time. But
he loses it the next year.
Okay.
He loses at the next Unforgiven.
Oh, okay.
But there, technically, I mean, the kayfabe reason why he was awarded it was because he won the number one contendership from the Undertaker the week before.
Right.
So like, there's a semi-good reason why that happened, but it's not bad. RVD beats Chris Jericho, Big Show, and Jeff Hardy in an actual elimination fatal 4-way match. Their way of setting that number one contendership up made sense.
Yeah.
And then it's just a lot of Triple H poo-pooing on RVD, saying that he's a real chill dude. RVD says, in one of the weeks leading up, the best thing Triple H is great at is spitting water.
Yeah, and they draw on that in the match, right? Like, Rob Van Dam spits water just exactly like Triple H, and Triple H looks like Rob Van Dam just shot his dog.
My wife
how dare you?
How dare you, sir?
My wifey was popping so hard for all the water spitting references because she hates Triple H. It's one of the reasons why I married her.
One of my favorite moments, like at the beginning of the match, is when Earl Hebner's showing both the competitors the world title, and he just walks over to Van Dam and he just takes it out of Earl Hebner's hands and just starts holding it up, which is the most heel thing to do.
Yeah.
And it was just so random, but
Well,
I've never seen that happen before or after, and it made me pop.
When he does that again, like, Triple H is just like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, you could look in his face and see, hey, what is he doing?
You're
Like,
exposing the business now.
You don't get to hold the belt yet.
You notice that even the dragon on his singlet was doing the thumb thing?
Was it?
It was, yeah.
That's
I
such a
loved
nice
it.
touch.
Okay, I can't ignore this any longer because I was popping so hard when these guys made their entrances. When Van Dam made his entrance, but then I noticed, like, when Triple H came out, are either of these entrances the actual entrances that were used at the time, or were they dubbed over?
No, they were
for the network.
No, I think they were both. They were both using both those songs in the shows leading up to this.
Yeah, I can't think of anything else they would have used at that point.
The only music that I'm confident that was dubbed over in this show was Ric Flair's.
Yeah, it's a different version of that.
All of the Raws and SmackDowns, all the Raws before this have the 2001 Space Odyssey music dubbed over.
Okay, that makes me feel so much better. I thought I was, like, marking out for these, like, 2005 songs or whatever, and I was like, and they were totally out of context. It's like, does this make me a casual, like...
Right. It's very strange, too, that they overdub Ric Flair's because his music's in public domain now.
Yeah.
You can use it. Like, it's an old enough song that's entered the public domain. The copyright laxed on it. I don't know why they overdub it with a different version.
I imagine it's just some kind of weird negotiating rule that was set in place.
Gotta be.
Let's talk about this sick ref bump.
Oh,
with,
yeah.
Earl Hebner, where Triple H just kind of run... Was it Triple H that took out Hebner, or did Rob Van Dam take out?
So Triple H is running at Rob Van Dam, and Van Dam leapfrogs him and sends him into Hebner, who is behind Van Dam.
Who just eats shit into the outside of the ring.
Falls through the ropes and just disappears, because they stay on that hard cam shot. He just disappears behind the barricade.
He did.
It's awful, but I love the little, like... We're almost seeing a mini feud between Earl Hebner and Triple H building. Because at SummerSlam, he's doing the whole thing in Shawn Michaels versus Triple H.
And we never got that conclusion. It makes me sad.
We didn't get the big blow-off match.
There's, spoiler alert, there's more ref bumps to come in the night.
Yep.
And I thought this one was executed, like, really, really well. And then when they overuse it later, I think it just really took the piss out of it. Like, it made it less good in hindsight. Mm-hmm. But I thought maybe the ref bump should have been isolated here. Not that the other one was bad. It's just, like, I wasn't excited to... I'm getting ahead of myself. Yeah.
But while the referee's down, Triple H tries to use the sledgehammer. Van Dam wheel kicks Triple H. Flair runs out, grabs the sledge, and it looks like he's going to hit Triple H. But then Flair hits Rob Van Dam.
The angle that it initially shows it looks like Flair hit him right in the dick. I swear it looked like he got hit in the dingus. And then obviously it didn't, but that was my initial thought when I saw that.
Bucket, were you expecting this?
So, yeah, I was like, okay, I was so fascinated because of that promo earlier in the night. I was like, how do we get from here to Evolution? So, like, it was almost like someone hit fast forward because, like, as soon as I asked the question, a few matches later, like, I'm guessing this is it. Like, they're here.
Right.
I turned to my, like, Alexa Dot or whatever that's on my house and just like, because like the Evolution music doesn't exist yet in this moment, so I just had Alexa, I was like, hey, Line in the Sand by Motorhead, and then my wife had no idea what was happening.
Right. Well, we're gonna see weeks of Triple H and Flair aligned together, and I'm curious to see if it's better now just watching these, because week to week that was awful. You'd get like 5 Triple H promos 2 matches, and then Flair's got to do his stuff. It was pretty boring to watch at the time, in my opinion.
Flair really starts to get his momentum back through all of this.
Yes.
And it's great to see that he's going to be a mouthpiece, but he'll also wrestle like a handful of times. But he'll really start to become the Ric Flair that we come to know and love.
Mm-hmm.
I was introduced to Ric Flair as like a mid-carder, so I really... And this is his transition kind of to the mid-card, because like every time before this he's in this weird limbo where he's not Ric Flair,
right,
and he's not mid-card Ric Flair yet, so what was he? So like, I think this is a positive change, at least for my sensibilities as a wrestling fan.
Right. So after this, we go backstage to my favorite segment of the night. D'Lo Brown and Billy Kidman are incensed watching this. They are mad. I had no clue D'Lo and Billy Kidman were with the company at this point.
They're on separate brands, too.
Oh, are they? I didn't even realize
Billy
that.
Kidman's on SmackDown, D'Lo's on Raw.
So a random man shows up and tells the two to keep their friends close and their enemies closer. It's apparently Eric Braeden from The Young and the Restless, a soap opera. D'Lo knows him right away. D'Lo loves Eric's character, but he has one question. Does he ever get any action from the women on The Young and the Restless in his downtime? Eric's kind of like, yeah, we can't talk about that. I've been a married man for many years. And D'Lo just goes, damn. What was the point of the question, though, is my main concern on that. But then, so Dawn Marie walks on and says Eric Braeden is with her. And D'Lo says, man, some guys get all the luck. And that was it. We don't see Dawn Marie anymore at any point. We don't see Eric Braeden. I don't know who this segment's for.
She ends up killing him when they go on their honeymoon 2 months from now.
Okay.
I'm really glad that you took time out, and this sounds sarcastic, but like I'm really glad you took time out of my day to explain what happened to me, because I watched this 3 days ago and I still couldn't process what was going on. To be fair, I did have someone sitting on the couch next to me watching like horror movie trailers the entire time.
Oh yeah.
So like I was like, who is this man? Who is this man? Who is this man? And by the time it was over, like her trailer was over, I was just like, am I really gonna rewind? Like, is it worth it?
It's not worth it.
You've answered my question.
Yeah.
I appreciate it.
Well, and I did look up a little bit about Eric Braeden. And the only fact, really, that I can find is his character on Young and the Restless was supposed to last 26 weeks. But as of 2020, he's been playing the character for 40 years.
Holy crap.
This man is still alive.
He's still alive.
Like...
That's so unfair. Umaga's away from us, but he's still here.
Up next, Molly Holly versus Trish Stratus.
My favorite storyline of this entire show.
Oh, no.
Because it's as bad as HLA.
Yeah.
Molly defeats Trish at King of the Ring 2002 to win the women's title for the very first time. And so the two face off against each other in various intergender / mixed tag team matches for like several months leading up to this. For some reason, Trish was primarily with Bubba Ray Dudley in like almost all of these, and then Molly had several tag team partners from like William Regal, and I think she was with Big Show in one match, and then our favorite, everybody's favorite Harvard graduate, Chris Nowinski.
Chris Nowinski, woo!
Just keep in mind
That's my boy.
Keep in mind everything I'm about to say. This guy has like led to a lot of study for CTE and like helped so much with brain research.
He's a good dude.
And this is his humble beginnings. August 5th Raw. Chris Nowinski and William Regal are backstage. They bump into Molly Holly, who introduces a debuting Victoria and says that they've been training all week for Victoria's match tonight. And as they walk off camera, Nowinski stops Victoria and asks, "Hey, is it true that Molly Holly's still a virgin?" And for some reason, despite the fact that they've only been training for a week, Victoria knows the answer to the question and says that, yeah, it's true. She is a virgin. And then Nowinski looks at Regal and goes, "Well, not for long."
Oh, no.
And then Trish and Victoria face off in a match that night, and Molly Holly joins JR and King on commentary.
Right.
And it's typical of all their commentary the entire time. It's just Jerry Lawler making cherry popping jokes.
God.
And it's awful.
Jerry Lawler doesn't understand women's anatomy. That's the whole point of the storyline is that.
Breaking news, neither does the Harvard graduate. The next week, investigative reporter Nowinski has a conversation with Molly's former boyfriend, Spike Dudley. And I don't know if this is true or not. I meant to ask her on Twitter if this was true or not.
No, no.
Now we're going to have to ask. He asked Spike if they ever tried the Dudley dog in the bedroom. Did they ever try the Molly go-round on the Springs? Dudley says that they didn't. He doesn't know that why they didn't.
He doesn't know.
It just occurred to him at that moment.
There's a don't try this at home ad on the beginning. Like, you don't know why you didn't try it.
He's practicing safe sex. He's practicing. God damn it! This is so stupid.
Is Molly Holly a heel because she's a virgin?
Yes.
Is that what this whole thing is?
Essentially. The very end of that segment, Nowinski looks at Regal and says that he's gonna make Holly his valedictorian.
Ew.
It's so gross.
Why is William Regal just always in the background to just be exposition?
Right.
He's just they're buddies, and then like out of nowhere he becomes aligned with the Unamericans.
In the build to this somewhere, they're talking about Molly Holly's hymen. I saw this clip.
The September 2nd Raw.
Oh yeah, you got.
Cite your sources, Drake.
So there's a point where Molly Holly gets pantsed,
Yeah.
and Jerry Lawler yells, "Is that her hymen?" Like, I don't think Jerry Lawler's ever seen a naked lady. Like, that's his whole character. Earlier, he's like, "Ooh, we're gonna see two women kiss and rub shoulders." Like, wahoo!
Nowinski says in an interview backstage, he just casually says, "Yeah, I'm gonna break Molly's hymen," and that's like the end of the segment. And then they go and have a match, And the entire time, like you said, Lawler just makes these random jokes. And my favorite one is Molly does like some decent offensive move, and Lawler goes, "Is that the Hyman maneuver?"
You idiot. You absolute buffoon.
That's the Hyman, JR. That's the Hyman right there. He doesn't understand how, like, any of the female anatomy works. We're going to have to take him to sex ed.
In Tennessee?
So-
Yeah. I might not help you out, buddy.
The match itself is very paint by the numbers. It's
Yep.
not good. It's not bad. It's just to get the title on Trish. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. Can someone explain to me? I watched this multiple times and I couldn't figure out what the relevance was. Why did JR name drop the Disney Channel mid-match?
What? Wait.
He
I
said
didn't hear that.
he said something about Molly watching the Disney Channel or something.
Oh.
Probably
I
because
think,
of her innocence.
I think it was like Molly hasn't been dating anyone, and then he just kind of like trails off, and then he makes like some kind of reference to that a little bit later, and I think it's like what Drake just said,
No.
just trying to make her seem like she's innocent.
So this match was so bad, and that Disney Channel's line stuck with me, and I was just like, what could I be watching, like, at this time period, instead of this pay-per-view? So I looked it up. Instead of watching this match, I could have been watching Kim Possible, The Proud Family, Lizzie McGuire, Even Stevens, The Famous Jet Jackson, and I hate The Famous Jet Jackson. Would have rather watched that than this particular match.
That's the golden age of Disney Channel, I feel like, right?
It's pretty gosh darn good.
We're also in the golden age of grappling.
No, yeah, that's true.
Not this match, though. Jeez. I mean,
Yeah,
the finish was good, but
yeah.
There's some great lines from Lawler. There's one where he's just sitting there and he's like, "Yeah, we're being watched all over the world. We're being watched in Taiwan. We're being watched in Mexico, the Virgin Islands," and just like starts talking about Molly Holly again.
Yeah, that's good comedy.
He says at one point virginity can't be cured.
I noted that line especially. I was like, what a creepy old man. But the finish is Stratus reverses an Irish whip into a wheelbarrow bulldog for the pin, just out of nowhere. Is very obviously it put Trish over. I thought that this was like the big crowning moment for Trish, and then they're like, yeah, this is her third Divas title. I was like, oh, okay, cool. They really sold it like this was the big crowning moment.
you like me! You really like me! She might as well have just said that
Yeah.
in her post-match promo. And by the way, is Trish Mandy Rose's mom? Like,
Oh,
she
yeah.
looks so much like... I guess that's kind of sacrilegious since Trish came first. I should say Mandy Rose looks like her, but I was introduced to Mandy Rose first. I'm sorry. And by the way, how are both the women in this match infinitely better looking now than they were these many years ago?
Yeah, it's crazy.
Like,
They've both aged well. After this, backstage, 3-minute warning, and Rico are hanging out with some ladies. I really only have one note about this, and I'll insert the audio here if no one else can prove me otherwise. They cut back to Taz and Michael Cole after this, and Taz, I swear, says, well, anything can happen in L.A. Rico with a bunch of tomatoes.
Well, anything can happen in L.A. Rico with a bunch of tomatoes.
It's exactly what he said.
Is that a slang term? I don't know what that means.
Oh no.
What does he say?
I mean, everyone had their own word for it. You know, you have King. He calls them puppies.
He's referring to breasts as tomatoes?
Yes.
God, Taz is the weird uncle.
Uncle
But-
Taz.
Yeah.
But also the best dressed commentator on this show.
He is. He's very...
He's the
very well dressed.
only one who dressed up.
Michael's still in his casual dress. Jerry Lawler looks like he's about to try to take over a medieval themed restaurant.
Do we have anything else, or can we go to the next match?
Go ahead.
Okay. So I'm gonna steal your thunder a little bit here because in what led up to this match, this feud between Kurt Angle and Chris Benoit is all because one of them laughed at the other one for getting a stink face from Rikishi. It doesn't matter which one. Like, just, it's equally funny either way. Who cares historically what happened? And then they just trade back and forth, like, doing everything they can to rub the other person's face into Rikishi's ass. Like, is that not a good summation? Like, is there any extra detail?
I really don't need to tell you much else.
That's all you need to know!
Brace yourselves for a huge main event. Undertaker and Rikishi against Angle, Benoit, Guerrero. Rikishi backing it up. The Foothouse coming. Gold medal style. Oh no! Stink face in a Olympic size stink face. No golden finish. Look at Chris Benoit. Benoit's amused, laughing at Angle because he got the stink face. I don't think Kurt agrees with the laughter. Well, Kurt doesn't agree with the laughter. Oh, Angle and Benoit. Oh, look out. The blow off the spear. Goes Benoit. Benoit to the top rope. Wait a minute. What the hell is that? It's Kurt Angle. Kurt Angle knocking Benoit over the top rope. Oh, come on, kick to Kurt Angle. Oh. And Rikishi gonna back it up, and Kurt Angle's holding Benoit. Angle's holding Benoit down. This is for the stink face. For the stink face. Revenge. And Kurt Angle's laughing about it. Angle thinks it's great. He got back at Benoit.
He held my arms in the stink face. He laughed at me. Nobody laughs at me.
At Unforgiven, it's gonna be Chris Benoit versus Kurt Angle.
Two egos, two great submission specialists, two great athletes. Benoit and Angle.
You think you can beat me?
The intensity of Benoit, the credibility of Angle.
Prove it.
And here it is, ankle lock. Angle's trying to break his damn ankle. Benoit's tapping into the ankle lock. And Benoit reverses. Oh, into the crossface. Into the crossface. Angle taps to the crossface.
At Unforgiven, when Kurt Angle sees my smile, he will feel my pain.
So, I mean, this easily was the best match of the night, right?
Oh, this match was great. I was glued to the TV for this. They meshed so well together. Benoit at one point lines up for what I thought was going to be a tombstone pile driver.
Right.
And hits a shoulder breaker on Kurt Angle. I was like, wow, it was brutal.
And they kind of like kept both trying to tease like a tombstone.
Yeah.
They kept flipping each other over like 2 or 3 times each.
It's very hard to watch Chris Benoit do diving headbutts with context.
Yep.
It was hard back in the day.
Yeah. And it's just like, man, you're doing so much. But I mean, this match, we've already said it, was phenomenal. It was great. I really hope we see more of this between these two.
You're gonna get some great stuff in the next few weeks.
Good.
We'll break that down a little bit towards the end, but there was just a lot of great back and forth mat wrestling in this match.
Yeah.
And they both just countered each other so well. Mm-hmm. They both kept just going back and forth, and it really kept our attention. It kept my attention, and it really kept the audience's attention that was there in LA.
For sure. The finish to this is, Benoit does a crossface on Kurt Angle. Angle applies a weird ankle lock while in the hold, which was really cool, I thought, and then he rolls into the normal ankle lock. Benoit rolls into the crossface. Kurt reverses into the ankle lock again. Benoit with a rope break. Angle does the crossface. Benoit nearly gets the rope, but Angle extends his leg out to push the rope away. Benoit rolls through and pins Angle with his feet on the ropes.
BT dubs. This match should have ended super earlier because there was a moment where, you have Kurt, he's on top and his he's face up. And he's laying on top of Benoit, who is face up as well, which means he's being pinned. And they do the little bridge spot.
Oh yeah.
And Benoit does not get up in time for the 3 count.
Yeah,
he should have been pinned right. I'm not taking anything away from that is physically hard to do, especially since Benoit's a smaller guy. So I'm not knocking him for not being able to do it immediately because I couldn't do it. Period, because I don't have arms. But but that match should have ended.
Yeah, and you can see the ref go 1, 2.
one of my favorite sequences in the match was they both kept trying to go for the Three Amigos, but with the German suplex.
Yeah.
And they would connect two, and then the other would counter, and then they would hit two suplexes, and they would counter. And then the last time that Benoit does it, he just essentially makes Kurt do a moonsault, and he lands on his stomach from the suplex. And that crowd loses their shit.
Right.
That was Suplex City before Brock could even like I was, if I hadn't already expended all my energy counting the side headlock takeovers, I would have done a little count here, but I mean, come on guys, counting's not all that fun.
Right.
But I mean, this was easily the best match of the night. Everybody enjoyed it. I'm really excited to see what they do next, because they end up becoming friends,
right,
from this, and you like see the tag team start building over the next month.
Whoa, no, stop it! They become friends?
Well, they do.
It's a friendly rivalry.
It takes a minute.
There's a spot in this match where Benoit reverses an ankle lock by kicking Kurt in the face repeatedly.
Yep.
And they become friends?
Yeah, man, it's respect.
Stephanie kind of forces them to.
Yeah.
But they shortly become a good team together.
Well, and the issue is going from this, guess what's back?
Hot lesbian action!
Eric Bischoff is on his way to the ring, and you hear, accompanied by the lesbians.
The lesbians!
It's such a weird... People paid $60 for this. those pay-per-views were expensive back then.
They were established to have names very shortly after this.
Yeah.
So why not just say, accompanied by Peaches and Cream?
Yeah, it was Peaches and Dream.
Oh, Dream!
Yeah.
Oh.
So, Eric Bischoff mentions that they've interviewed thousands of lesbians in Hollywood, but it's down to these two. But like a couple segments ago, we just saw Eric Bischoff look at two women backstage and go, yeah, you two, come on. You got to do HLA with Stephanie McMahon. And because it's 2002, the women were into it. 2002 WWE, if anything's going to be even mildly uncomfortable for the women sexually, yeah, look, they enjoy it. That's exactly the way they write stuff like that.
That sounds like what a middle-aged white man would write for a woman.
Yep. Stephanie McMahon enters. Bischoff says he picked two lesbians because he wants a threesome. Jerry Lawler's being the worst. Jim Ross says, "Are you that lonely, King?" And Lawler says, "Look at this, JR. Does this count for personal growth? Did he just show his penis to Jim Ross off camera?"
I missed that one! Now, this is going to be a loss on a lot of you youngos out there. You're not going to understand this reference, but I think Jerry says "ménage de trois" is French for Kodiak moment, which is a phrase that we used when we took pictures with cameras.
Right. Well, Bischoff changes his mind, tells the lesbians to leave, but tells Stephanie to stay. He says he found, quote, the most repulsive lesbian he could find, and that this woman has been begging Bischoff at his hotel. A larger woman comes out. Stephanie's horrified. Her name's Hildegard.
Hildegard!
Bischoff says she's done prison time. She's used to this sort of thing, which is... every line in this is just awful.
Leading up to like this moment, it's like, who agrees to go on TV and be billed as the biggest, fattest, ugliest lesbian?
Yep.
I am in hook, line, and sinker at this point. I'm like, this poor woman, this poor lady, like, she's not even like she's definitely not the fattest woman in the world.
Right.
Like, I mean, did 600-pound people not exist in the early 2000s? Like,
I got breaking news for you.
I know, I found out.
You found out very quickly that it wasn't a woman.
Yeah, and that's the thing. So Stephanie kisses the hell out of this woman, really lays it in, like a stiff kiss.
Touches the butt.
Yeah, and so
gets a handful of ass.
The woman super kicks Bischoff, rips the wig off and the makeup, and it's Rikishi. I had no idea it was Rikishi this whole time. He's just wearing a wig, and it's like, wait, that's Rikishi.
I can't believe I didn't see it.
I know. It's so obvious when he removes the wig.
Did you know this was happening?
So I knew that Rikishi was involved. I had never seen this actually play out.
Oh,
and
man.
I popped majorly when I
had no
realized it was
clue.
Rikishi.
No one ever talks about this aspect of it. It's all Bischoff under the face paint and 3-minute warning and whatever. But no, they left this out of Rikishi's Hall of Fame package. Bro.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh, they should have thrown that in.
I did want to mention this because this is something I thought of. Bischoff mentioned that this woman was begging him at the hotel, which means one of two things. Bischoff either saw Rikishi dressed as a woman at the hotel for some other reason and convinced him to make out with Stephanie without Rikishi saying anything, or Rikishi just like begged Bischoff at the hotel in a Mrs. Doubtfire voice, like, "Oh yeah, I'd love to come make out with Stephanie McMahon, Mr. Bischoff.
I love hot lesbian action."
It sounds great. Oh man!
Thank Christ that is over.
End my misery.
Are Jimmy and Jay alive yet?
Oh, yeah.
Are they just watching their dad on TV doing this?
Rikishi dances with Stephanie to end the segment, and it's like, oh, well, that was that. This is what I'm going to start referring to as the Howard Finkel slot, because we had that weird right before the main event Howard Finkel segment at SummerSlam, and now we've got this. I want to see if they keep putting just like the weirdest shit before the main event.
Think about it. They got to put a buffer in between Benoit Angle and the main event.
You don't have to.
You can't.
We didn't need this.
I'm not saying I liked it. I'm saying I understood their thinking on it.
I'm immediately thinking of Bad Blood 2003, and that's
I'm not there yet. I'm not there yet.
It's there's some bad stuff involving Bischoff that, yeah, it's just a comedy bit to lead up to your main event, and now I'm never going to be able to unthink it as the Howard Finkel spot.
Yep. Speaking of the main event, here we are, Brock Lesnar versus Undertaker for the WWE title, not the Undisputed Championship anymore. It's now the WWE Championship, and it's exclusive to SmackDown.
You're looking at the WWE's animalistic future. I told you that Brock Lesnar would destroy the myth of Hulkamania. This is enough. You made your point, Brock. I told you Brock Lesnar would beat The Rock at SummerSlam. Brock Lesnar has become the youngest champion in WWE history. And nobody can beat this. Last ride's coming. Calm down. Right to Chris Benoit. 1, 2, 3. Undertaker is the #1 contender.
To my client, that's family. The world's championship. But you not only have to train for Brock Lesnar, you have to tend to your pregnant wife, Sarah, at home. If anything happens to you in this match, and you can't provide for your family, I want you to know the giving man that I am. I will definitely take care of your lovely wife, Sarah. Oh, God! Oh, God! Oh, God! I'll rip your hair! But I refuse to take care of your unborn child. Life's a bitch.
Lesnar put a hand on the body of Undertaker's wife. Not just the body, but the womb that bears Taker's unborn child. Lesnar, you said that life is a bitch. Well, I'm here to tell you, punk, payback's a bitch. The Undertaker is mad as hell. Too much is not enough. Nobody said this stuff makes any sense. We're hooked again. Get closer to the thrill that only time can kill. It's in your eyes. It's so alive. Thrilling keeps me in the game. Thrilling you don't even feel. Wilder than your wildest dreams. You're going to stories. It tastes adrenaline. Will the dead man bury the next big thing? Or will Brock Lesnar also destroy the legend of The Undertaker? Too much is not enough. Nobody gave it up. I'm not the kind to lay
This feud seems very straightforward. Like, hey, it's your big Brock Lesnar. You want to see him fight Undertaker. He's the next big thing. And then they added that whole dimension of, like, also, Brock Lesnar's obsessed with Undertaker's unborn child. It seems like a very strange, like, it didn't need it.
He knew that child's going to one day grow up to be the next big thing. And I don't know if that child was a boy or a girl, but maybe one day that child will come out at WrestleMania and retire Brock Lesnar.
Oh, yeah, that would be great long-term booking. Involving Sarah is such a strange, out-of-left-field thing.
I feel like Taker should have learned from Macho Man Randy Savage. Like, my favorite tweet of all time is from Lance Storm talking with Randy Savage, like, back in the WCW days. Mm-hmm. And one of the best bits of advice Savage ever gave him was, don't ever let your wife get involved in a storyline. I did that once, and I ain't got no wife no more.
Oh, God, that's so sad.
And it's smart. It's, like...
Yeah.
He divorced Sarah, so I guess that kind of proves the theory right.
Right. One of the things that's mentioned in this match is that Undertaker's wife went into false labor on Thursday, so now he's nervous. And it's like, oh, that's a neat layer to this match.
My level of hype is just gone. This is weird.
Yeah, the HLA segment really killed this main event for me.
And it doesn't help that, like, how this match ends.
Yeah.
It really just throws a lot of people off.
Well, the whole time Undertaker is punching and kicking Brock Lesnar and stuff, and Lesnar takes every punch and kick and just flies out of the ring. He keeps getting knocked to the outside. He looks like a Super Smash Brothers character with high damage. Like, you expect him to... He punches Lesnar falls out, and you just hear, like...
So, again, so, like, I would have liked that way better, but I kind of feel like I saw this in the other world title match with the side headlock takeovers.
Yeah.
They were kind of structured very similarly.
Right. At one point, they brawl outside. Undertaker bleeds. Taker goes to Irish whip into the corner, but the ref is in the way and he gets knocked out. Referees in title matches tonight just getting abused. Taker chokeslams Lesnar. Could have won. Matt Hardy, of all people.
Oh, yeah!
So, why is Matt Hardy running in here, Jake?
So, there have been several instances where Matt's been involved with Brock and Taker here in the last few weeks. One week, Brock beats Matt Hardy as he's starting to debut my favorite Matt Hardy gimmick. You can love delete as much as you can. Matt Hardy version 1's the best gimmick that's ever been made.
Did you know that Matt Hardy likes spaghetti?
Oh, yeah, the Matt facts.
Matt Hardy hates mustard. So he's, like, starting to debut this and, like, trying to take in the Ruthless Aggression moniker. He gets beat by Brock one week. That same night is the night that Undertaker jumps over to Raw, he jumps over to SmackDown and wins the #1 contendership. That next week, Brock beats a young Randy Orton. This wasn't the actual match, but in this match with Brock, it looks like that's when Randy gets initially injured, and that's when we start getting the Randy News Network.
Oh, okay.
It's not. According to the Evolution documentary, it's not. But he gets a couple of potatoes in that match. So later that night, Stephanie has Brock and Taker go into a face-to-face talk in a locker room in the back, and it's just very dramatically lit. You just have, like, 2 lights hanging directly above them, and that's how the entire scene is framed and lit. Brock just talks about all the cool things that he's done. Taker says he's going to destroy him, and then that's when Paul starts bringing in the whole Sarah angle into this story, saying that he left Sarah at home. He has to tend to his pregnant wife, and it's just really strange. The big line from Heyman in this segment was, if The Undertaker doesn't survive this match against Brock Lesnar, Lesnar is going to be more than willing to take care of Sarah and the baby, which really strikes a nerve, and they kind of finish where Brock pushes the table aside, and they just have this very dramatically lit shot where they get in each other's faces. I always thought that was something that was shot not during the television show, and it turns out it was. But
and it kind of makes Brock Lesnar a good dude, though. He's like, hey, if you die in this match, I'll take care of your kid.
I got you, brother.
Yeah.
One of the biggest criticisms of Brock Lesnar is that he hasn't experienced any character growth in his entire WWE career. But with watching this, like him going like, it's okay, Mark, I'll take care of your kids. Fast forward to just a couple years ago when Heath Slater, knowing that Brock Lesnar would take care of Undertaker's unborn child, he comes out and says, hey, Brock, can I have a job? I got kids, man. And then we see Brock Lesnar say, I don't give a shit about your kids. What happened in those 16 years?
He had a kid himself. And it was like, nah, nope, not for me.
That's just Brock's entire gimmick, because he just doesn't give a shit about your kids.
Or anything else, really.
So I don't know if you are prepared for this, but we have a hardcore Holly moment.
Oh, no, I'm not prepared for this. I don't have any hardcore Holly facts ready.
Damn it. The next week on SmackDown, Brock defeats Hardcore Holly in a non-title bout. And this is the match where Brock just power slams Holly right on his neck.
Oh, yeah?
Where he
Breaks his
actually
neck.
breaks his neck. It's a terrifying spot because every time I remember watching that moment, it was, he just kind of carefully laid him down by accident. He was trying to bring him back up to do a powerbomb. No, the dude literally drops him on his neck.
Yeah.
And it's a terrifying spot.
Yeah, it's awful.
Cue to a spot backstage where Taker brings his wife into the arena. Here's where Matt Hardy comes in. Taker faces Matt Hardy in a match with Brock Lesnar and Paul at ringside. The ref bans Brock and Heyman from ringside after multiple distractions. Cut to Heyman backstage. He's walking inside Taker's locker room and begins to harass Sarah. Taker sprints backstage, and once he gets back there, he's attacked with a steel chair by Brock. And then Brock approaches Sarah and then touches her belly and says that life's a bitch.
Yeah, it's so weird.
Before, like, earlier in the night, Hardy tries to go and talk to Taker and is like, hey, can I go talk to Sarah? I just want to tell her congratulations on the baby. And he was just, like, seemingly trying to be nice, and Taker was just not having any of it. He's like, no, you can't talk to Sarah. Nobody can talk to Sarah except for me.
Overly protective Undertaker.
And then the next week, Brock and Paul walk around most of the night with hired police officers protecting them. Mm-hmm. And then towards the end of the night, Taker gets a couple licks on him.
Huh.
The best part of this match is when Michael Cole calls The Undertaker an emotional freight train, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense at the time, but nowadays is a hilarious statement.
That's really funny.
Because the best promo in the industry is an emotional freight train.
Hey, I'm not an emotional freight train. I'm the dead man.
I just have to see Freight Train versus Undertaker now.
Yeah, we could probably have it happen at like a $5 wrestling or something. If Undertaker will do it. I don't know. Does he take bookings?
Tell your boys at WWA to make it happen.
Yeah, we'll do it. Freight Train versus Undertaker. I don't want to promise that.
Tweet at him.
Tweet at him. At the end of this match, the ending's really flat. And I mean, everyone's drained, including us right now after the HLA segment. But the referee gets knocked out 3 times. And at the end of it, the referee's just had enough and he just throws the match out. So there's your world championship match.
I liked it.
I thought it was cool knowing where it's going now.
Like, I thought it was cool. Well, one thing I didn't like about it is that referee was too darn sturdy. Like, they should have, like, been like a horror movie. Have one referee go down,
right,
and then another one comes out, and then that referee goes down, and then just have like the third referee just like throw the match out. Like, I'm not going in there.
And after this, Undertaker and Lesnar fight up the ramp. Undertaker throws Lesnar through the giant Unforgiven sign at the top of the ramp. I mean, just yeets him. He disappears. Yeet. Oh man, he launches him. And then they like the same thing happened here that happened at SummerSlam. He throws Lesnar through the sign. Taker turns around and they're like, oh man, good night. Right to black.
It was the last life Lesnar had in the Super Smash Brothers game.
I don't know. If I was paying $60 for this and that was my main event.
Yeah.
I mean, I get pissed when I get that and I pay $10 for the WWE Network.
You had to sit through this and HLA.
sit through all of the shit
For $60.
That's a little much, I think.
But that's Unforgiven 2002. Jake, good show, bad show, or just a show?
I'm gonna say it was just a show.
Yeah.
You've got some ups, you've got a lot of downs.
Yeah, it balanced out. It was something I watched. I'm not like, ooh, that was so good, but I only really hated it during the HLA segments, I guess.
Yeah. There was some really fun matches in there. I thoroughly enjoyed the Unamericans versus all the other Americans. In the beginning of the show, that was a really good match to hype up the crowd. And I really feel like Chris Benoit and Kurt Angle really stood out in this pay-per-view. They were just, it was just a really fun back and forth mat-based match.
For sure.
Super quick, I'm going to pour out this bucket list.
Here we go, bucket list.
Number 5 best thing about this show, Rico's physical appearance. Nothing about what he did in the match, just his drip, okay? It was phenomenal. Number 4, Emotional Freight Train. Book it. WrestleMania. We need it. Number 3, the formation of Evolution. Like, we're about to get some of the greatest nonsensical theme music of all time, and I am ready for that to happen now. Number 2, shithead Eddie Guerrero is probably best Eddie Guerrero. He is such a dick. I loved it.
So good.
Number 5, side headlock takeover city. That I was losing my mind.
So that's enough for us today. I guess after all the HLA stuff, I'm not looking forward to watching the next show, but I am because I enjoy sitting here and making fun of it.
Oh, what's the next one?
Okay, so the next show is No Mercy 2002, and
what's so bad about
Triple
it?
H versus Kane in the main event, and let me tell you, the build up for that one.
Oh no,
It's gonna be a lot of fun.
It is deadly.
God.
We're hitting all the Ruthless Aggression era greatest hits right here at the beginning.
Like, how blessed are we to have 2 straight pay-per-views with HLA and KV? I'm just gonna say KV.
KV. We'll just go ahead and say that right now and
wait.
tease it for next time.
I'm just putting this all in context. And then we still get the Booker T feud after this, right?
Yep.
Oh my god.
Oh yeah.
Okay,
It's
done.
a good time.
See you guys.
We're gonna get the formation of the SmackDown Tag Team Division this next pay-per-view.
SmackDown's gonna get really good. Raw's gonna get really bad.
Yep.
But if you want to reach out to us on social media, our Twitter is @RPAPod, Facebook.com/RPAPod. We now have a Facebook page. We didn't as of last recording. Instagram @Ruthless Passive Aggression. You can also reach out to us with any sort of comments or whatever. Ruthless Passive Aggression @gmail.com. Make sure you give us a review on Facebook, iTunes, SoundCloud, wherever you get your podcasts. It actually really helps us out with the algorithm.
I have my own personal Twitter @WrestleBucket. Can you believe I was able to snatch that up without having to put like a 1 in it or underscores?
I'm kind of proud of you. That
Yeah,
you didn't have
right?
to do
That's
that.
good.
I'm blessed.
I'm @JakeEdwards75 on Twitter. Just hanging out with us on Twitter.
And I'm @TheDrakeJackson. If you've never met me, it's actually JAXON because I'm extreme and I'm really edgy. It's really...
He's extreme.
Yeah, I'm a really edgy guy. So that's a goodbye from each of us, and we'll see you at No Mercy 2002.
Bye, buddies.